O'clock. I am calling to order the Select Board meeting of September 8th, 2025. And if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And this meeting is being telecast live by Chelmsford Telemedia and being recorded for later viewing by the public. And first up, we have public service announcements. We do have one member on Zoom tonight, Pat Maloney. Pat, are you there?
I am.
All right,
Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you. Pat's going to do the public service announcements for us.
Okay. Chelmsford Fire Department is having a 9/11 remembrance ceremony that'll be held September 11th, 2025 at Fire Headquarters on 50 Billrica Road in Chelmsford. The event will start at 8:30 a.m. Refreshments will be served following the ceremony. All are welcome and encouraged to attend. You can contact Deputy Chief Ryan Houle at 978-250-5268 or rhoole@chelmsfordmass.gov. Firefighter Rob Albin, 351-322-9467. Chelmsford Local 1839@gmail.com. Chelmsford Military Covenant Task Force invites the community to a 9/11 remembrance ceremony. Please join them to honor those who perished that day, the first responders who answered the call to serve. Saturday, September 13th, 2025, 9 a.m. at the Chelmsford 9/11 Memorial at 50 Billrica Road, Chelmsford, Mass. The Chelmsford Health Department's monthly newsletter. So the Fall Festival is almost here. Join them for a fun-filled day at the Chelmsford Health Department's annual Fall Festival. This beloved community tradition brings together families, friends, and neighbors to celebrate the season with activities for all ages. Enjoy free entertainment, kids' activities, community resources, and plenty of opportunities to connect with local organizations. Food trucks will also be on site for delicious fall favorites. That event will be held September 27th from 11 to 4 p.m. On the Chelmsford Town Common. The next item is Buried in Treasures Workshop. Are you feeling overwhelmed by clutter? Buried in Treasures is a supportive 15-week workshop designed to help individuals make lasting changes. Participants explore practical strategies, share encouragement, and learn tools to better manage clutter and create a healthy and more organized living space. Registration is required. That event is on September 9th from 5 to 6 at Chelmsford Town Hall. The police and fire are providing for a free police versus fire softball game. Join them for a fun-filled evening as Chelmsford Police and Fire Departments face off in a police versus fire softball game. This free family-friendly event is a great way for the community to come together and cheer on our first responders. Bring your family, friends, and plenty of team spirit. The event is proudly presented by the Chelmsford Suicide Prevention Coalition in partnership with the Chelmsford Police and Fire Departments. That event is on September 18th at 6 p.m. Crane Field at Southwell, Watton Street. Annual overdose vigil. To have your lost one's name read at the annual overdose vigil, there's a scan that you could do. We can't show that here, but join them as they honor the lost lives to overdose, support those struggling, and stand united in hope, compassion, and recovery. That event is September 4th, starting at 6:30, so it's going to blood pressure screenings. There's another blood pressure screening dropped by the Health Department office located at Chelmsford Town Hall at Chelmsford Senior Center for a free blood pressure screening. Registration is not required. The next one is September 25th, 8:30 to 10:30 at the Chelmsford Senior Center. Narcan training. Learn to save a life. Join us for a free opioid overdose response and Narcan training. Participants will receive hands-on guidance on recognizing and responding to an overdose, plus free Narcan to take home. That event's on September 25th, 3 p.m. to 3:30 at Chelmsford Town Hall. Breathe Together, Heal Together, a free beginner-friendly medication series for those in recovery and their loved ones. Find calm, healing, and connection. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. at the North Chelmsford Community Center. Roll up your sleeve to fight the flu. September 22nd, 3 to 7 at the Chelmsford Senior Center. Reserve your time. I assume you can go to the Chelmsford Senior Center website to do that. Um, or you can contact Angel at chelmsfordmass.gov or at 978-250-5241. Massachusetts Behavioral Health Helpline. Free confidential help is available 24/7 across Massachusetts for the mental health and substance use support. Call or text 833-773-2445 or chat at masshelpline.com. Sober karaoke. Join them for a fun, alcohol-free evening of music, laughter, and community. Enjoy free pizza plus light refreshments and mocktails available for purchase. Whether you're singing on stage or cheering from the crowd, it's a safe and welcoming space to connect and have fun. That is September 12th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Fall book sale. The Friends of the Library are having the annual fall book sale at the Town Hall Gym at 50 Bill Ricker Road in Chelmsford. So enjoy a large selection of fiction, nonfiction, children, and young adult books. DVDs and CDs are available. Friday, October 3rd, 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Saturday, October 4th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday, October 5th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There will be a members only event Thursday evening, October 2nd, from 5 to 8 p.m. Lower crowds and best selection. Join the Friends of the Library to attend at www.chelmsfordlibrary.org/get-involved/friends. Take the LRT 5-year Regional Comprehensive Transit Plan Survey. The LRTA survey will help guide the LRTA with planning for service, coverage, frequency, and more access to transit across the region. Help the LRTA determine priorities over the next 5 years. By taking that short survey, you'll need to go to the LRTA website to find that. Choose Chelmsford Age-Friendly Job Fair. Save the date, September 24th, 11 to 1 p.m. at the Chelmsford Town Hall at 50 Bill Ricker Road. Contact Tabrith Tao by phone, 978-805-4875, or by email, thavrith@masshirelowellcc.com. DPW is seeking plow contractors for the 2025-2026 winter season. Packets available at DPW, 9 Alpha Road. Call 978-520-5, I think it's supposed to say 250, sorry. Call 978-250-5228 or email mthomas@chelmsfordmass.gov. Rates begin at $110 per hour and up to $200 per hour. Incentive sign-up bonus of $1,500. New this year is a guaranteed maximum payment in addition to incentives, $4,000 for pickups and $5,500 for six-wheeler and larger. And that completes the community announcements.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Next up, we have general public input. And do we have anyone here for general public input? No, no one on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, next up, committee vacancies.
Okay, committee vacancies. As of September 8th, 2025, Agricultural Commission has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026. The Board of Assessors has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2027. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has one 3-year term ending June 30th, 2028. The Capital Planning Committee has one 3-year term ending June 30, 2028. Commission on Disabilities has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30, 2026. Two unexpired 3-year terms ending June 30th, 2027, and two 3-year terms ending June 30th, 2028. The Council on Aging Board has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026, and two 3-year terms ending June 30th, 2028. Historic District Commission alternate member, one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2027. The Holiday Decorating Committee has two unexpired 1-year terms ending December 31st, 2025. Military Covenant Military Community Covenant Task Force has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026. The Parade Committee, all applicants are welcome, 1-year terms ending July 31st, 2026. Permanent Building Committee has 2 3-year term ending June 30th, 2028. Vital Square Strategic Action Plan Committee is looking for a business representative, 1 unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available at the town website. For more information, please contact the town manager's office at 978-250-5202 or tmoffice@chelmsfordmass.gov.
Thanks, Pat. Next up, we have public hearings, and we have a public hearing for National Grid and Verizon, a poll petition for Acton Road. We have someone here. Hi.
Vazna Ang, 1101 Turnpike Street here for National Grid.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So what are we looking at here?
National Grid seeks the town's approval to install a new pole 3-50 in the public way in order to facilitate the system improvement that is required on Acton Road, sorry.
DPW's examined, they have no concerns with the site, and we've had no report of any concerns from any of the residential abutters at the location.
I noticed DPW did note the existing stone wall has to remain in place.
Right, but there's no problem with the placement of the pole. Right by Bartlett Street.
What's that?
It's by Bartlett Street, or for people watching it, like we're in Acton Road, as you know, it goes from the center to the edge of town.
Is it gonna block I feel like people walk there and there's no sidewalk there. It's a little, but there's already
poles on that side.
Yeah,
of the
there's already
street.
poles on that side, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. All right. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Concerns? No? Pat? Okay, if nobody has anything, I guess we need a motion, right? We
Public
need to vote
hearing.
to
Yeah,
approve
Pat,
it.
you're muted.
Oh, we have to close the public hearing. Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We do have to do a roll call vote because we have a member on Zoom, so Pat will
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so the public hearing is closed. And if nobody has any other comments or concerns? No? I'll take another motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the poll petition as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and another roll call. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Approved.
All set, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, suggestion, we have the applicants here for the 2 licenses. It's a real brief, and we probably get them on their way.
Yes, yes,
As well
thank
as
you.
online. Yeah.
Yep, we can do that. So we're going to
Please,
skip
reports.
reports and presentations for just a moment, and and we'll go straight to licenses. And the first one we have is a 1-day beer and wine license for David Souza at 75 Groton Road for October 4th, 2025. And you said we do have someone here?
We have
Is
the
David
ones,
Souza
we have the
here?
ones here for the entertainment license at Chelmsford Barbecue.
Oh, okay, but nobody's here for the 75 Groton Road one.
We can come back to that in case somebody shows.
Okay.
I know Mr. Souza has had events at the senior center before in which we have granted him 1-day beer and wine licenses. I'm no surprised he's not here, but whatever.
Okay, well, let's do the other one first. Why don't we see the entertainment license for the Chelmsford Barbecue LLC DBA The Smoke Shop Barbecue at 18 Boston Road? Because we do have someone here for that.
Yeah, they're
right?
on the Zoom.
Okay.
Hi, good
Hello.
evening.
Hi, Andy Husbands from the Smoke Shop Barbecue. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Bill Goodwin from the Smoke Shop Barbecue. Hello.
Okay. Okay, so what are you guys looking, oh, it's entertainment license for a band, a party?
Guitar player.
Guitar player.
And trivia?
And trivia.
Yep.
So I have a question on the application. It says application is a new license, but aren't you just amending your current license?
Yes. I'm not sure why it says that.
Okay.
That might be our bad, not knowing that it's the same thing.
Oh, for a Huntington's disease fundraiser. Okay,
Looking at the right one?
is that?
No,
No, it's the one, this is for this would be a permanent entertainment license for them
Go a
to
couple more.
occasionally
Oh,
have
yeah, thank
trivia
you.
nights
Okay,
and/or
I'm like, thank you, wait a minute.
guitars.
Okay.
So they would remove those two tables that you see circled in the corner and those activities. Exactly. It's the same, exactly. This previous operator at this location had a similar license, and there were no issues.
So this, it's only good for 1 week?
No, it's good for forever.
Oh,
It's a
I was gonna
permanent
say, I
amendment,
was like,
yeah.
it says 1 week, 7 days. Why does it say 7 days?
7 days a week?
7 days
Oh,
a week.
7 days a week, okay, yeah, I was like, this is not, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, that's hard to have a weekly trivia if you're, in band, if you're, okay. 7 days a week, I say. Okay. Does anyone have questions, comments? No?
Good.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the board approve the addition of an entertainment license to the common victual license for Chelmsford Barbecue LLC, DBA The Smoke Shop Barbecue, to be exercised on the premises at 18 Boston Road as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. So motion passes.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks, guys.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will go back to David Souza for the 1-day beer and wine license at 75 Groton Road. And there's
Would
no
you like the
one.
motion?
Yes, I'll take a motion since we've all, I don't think, nobody has any comments, questions? Okay, yeah, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve a 1-day beer and wine license for a fundraiser being held October 4th, 2025 at the Chelmsford Senior Center, 75 Groton Road as presented. Or-
I'll
Yes.
second that.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm an aye. The license passes. Thank you. Okay, and now we have, there's nobody else here for anything, is there?
Nope.
Okay. I don't think there's anybody in the audience for anything on the agenda, except for maybe this lady in purple. Are you here for something on the agenda?
She's with the sewer presentation.
Okay,
But,
good.
yeah.
Okay, so next up, we have reports and presentations. And first, we have Peter Spahn and Kevin Powers from the Tree Committee with a report and presentation for us. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Pass it on. Paul, you're going to do, you'll do slides for
yeah,
us. Well,
just tell me
thank you.
next
That's
slide.
great. Hi, everybody. Hey, thanks for having the tree committee in. We just, there's been a lot of activity the last couple of years and wanted to give you all an update on what's been going on. So I'll talk about 3 topics, or actually with my colleagues here, which I'll introduce. 3 topics: what we've been doing on tree activity. We would like to get your feedback on a memorial tree program and use the whole conversation to kind of tee up the fact that tree canopy is in the strategic plan. So thank you for approving that. So next slide, Paul. Just quickly, what does a tree committee do? I mean, there is a charter, but the way we look at it is trees are important for a bunch of reasons. Aesthetics, open space, stormwater, heat reduction, part of our carbon goals in the climate action plan, and it aligns with the select board and the strategic plan goal. I do need to apologize for a mistake in this slide because it looks like the declining tree canopy that we've talked about before aligns with our strategic goal. And of course, it's the opposite. Our strategic goal is to fix or work on the declining canopy. So apologies for that. I do also want to mention that the trees are mentioned in about 5 of our town's strategic plans: master plan, open space plan, climate vulnerability plan. I mean, it's more than just, there's a pretty tree. So next slide, Paul. I want to point out that there's a lot of players impact tree canopy, so we emphasize partnerships. And I really want to thank town manager, the select board, for your support on trees, especially, and Paul, I'm looking to you. I'm not even sure where the grants came from for the tree planting this year, but we really appreciate that. That kind of support is very important. And I also want to thank our tree warden, who's here tonight, Christine Clancy, for figuring out how to plant 141 trees on relatively short notice as tree planting goes. And I also want to mention just briefly, I'm also on the Concom. I feel like developers and residents applying for new projects are starting to pay more attention to either preserving trees, if possible, or planting new ones. And so, again, there's sort of been an overall increase, I think, in attention. So next slide, Paul. I'll make this quick. Just a super quick recap of what's been going on the last couple of years. We mentioned a bunch of these: strategic plan, planting trees, partnerships, tree inventories, tree list and planting guide on the website. One thing that you may recall, the town did establish a revolving tree fund, which we'll talk about another time, but that's a mechanism to in the future perhaps plant and fund more trees. And also established in the last year as part of the new planting program was a way to water the trees. And with the DPW leadership, the town bought a tractor vehicle to help watering trees. Turns out if you don't water them once a week, they're going to die, and that turns out that is a big effort. And the final thing, we did a calculation, last bullet on this slide, on what the U.S. Forest Service considers the value to be of a tree, value to a town like ours, for all the tree benefits that we mentioned. And the number is $25,000 for a 24-inch oak tree. So my hope is that down the road we can keep that number in mind as we think about the town. So I'm going to wrap up. Next slide. Yeah, the plan's coming up. The big thing is the invasive and tree management plan that was funded by town meeting. Committee is working with our tree warden to get a consultant to give us some expert advice on improving trees. There is also a new program called Front Yard Sidewalk. You'll hear about that later, but Evan Belansky and Christine Clancy and others on the Vulnerability Planning Committee had somehow magically ended up with a big chunk of money to fund private trees planted by the town on private land. You'll hear more about that as we develop it. Some other things we're working on. One big thing I'm interested in, speaking with the board down the road, we have tree canopy improvements in the strategic plan. How are we going to measure that? And we have some ideas on how to do that. We'll work together, figure that out over the next couple of months. And finally, one of the things we've been working on, I'd like to invite Kevin Powers, our newest member of the tree committee. Thank you. And Kevin joined us as just a citizen volunteer a year before he was an official member with an idea that he'll tell you about.
Thanks, Peter. Hi. So just want to start off with this slide here. It's a design of a flyer that the tree committee put together to try to roll out this program. The idea is to put a tag down the bottom where you can scan to get to a website that will give you additional information about the program itself and an application. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. So this is just to highlight what other towns in the area are doing. There's just a few towns that I brought up. Belmont, being the first, is probably the closest to what we're trying to roll out. You can see that for their donation, you get the tree, the planting of the tree, the the bark mulch as well as watering, which is a big effort, as Peter has already stated. And also a replacement in 2 years if it dies, within the 2 years of planting. And along with that, Belmont offers a small plaque. Worcester, on the other hand, they give you the tree, they plant it, but, you know, the fee difference or the donation difference, there's no water involved, so the cost is less. And the last example of Swampscott is, you know, they don't offer the replacement. So these are the factors that make it, you know, different from town to town. If you go to the next slide. So we kind of, you know, looked at Belmont, and we kind of like that model, but we did a little bit. We wanted to offer 2 options. The first option is pretty much the same. You know, you get the tree, the watering, the replacement of the tree within 2 years, the mulch, as well as a small plaque. And I can show you kind of a mock-up of that in a few seconds. And then the second option is if you don't want a plaque, you get all the benefits of the tree as option 1. So the idea is to take applications through the year, have a maximum, I think right now we're thinking a target of 10 to 15 for the first year, and then first come, first serve. They fill out the application. We're going to have some pre-selected locations, as well as pre-selected tree species that will fit those locations that people can pick. Then at the beginning of the year, January, February, we'll go through it, decide, you know, how much we can take on, and then for the spring planting, around May, I guess. And the next slide. And this is an example of the plaque that we're offering. Not the exact, I'm still working on different options, trying to get a little bit better quality, working with a local vendor. But there's a small plaque on a stake. The one we have marked up right now is about 8.5 inches by 5, and it's just for the small tree. And that's the program. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. So I guess the request tonight is to request that this program be adopted. So there's a lot of requests brought before to the select board, especially benches. I know there's a bench on tonight. We just had another bench request as well. So we just thought this would be another opportunity for people to provide a memorial. I mean, often it's been benches. Trees have popped up in previous years, and so the tree committee thought it'd be a great idea to memorialize this as a program. We first thought it could go through the select board, which it can, but also thinking if, I guess, with an adoption of a or a motion to allow the tree committee to run with the program. We would still provide annual updates. As stated, this would be the pilot. This would be the first year. We thought 10 to 15 locations. We still have to identify the locations. They would be on town property. So, you know, Friendship Park is a popular place. We do want to pick the locations as somewhat of a cluster, just so we can focus on the watering more in clusters. So maybe a handful at Friendship, maybe a handful. It could be the town offices. But we would pick areas around town on an annual basis. And as far as the pricing, we had proposed, you know, 2 options, looking at the cost of the tree, the mulch, and watering, which we would be doing the watering in-house, but still that is effort and cost as well. So the request, I guess, would be to get feedback on the program and also see if there's an opportunity to have a motion to allow the tree committee to pilot this program for the first year.
How many a year is it that you
So we're
approve?
targeting for the first year about 10 to 15, just this first year. So we would start, if, you know, assuming this was a go-ahead tonight, we would start with the social media and the PR piece of it probably over the next month or 2. Request applications by probably either end of January, maybe mid-February. And it would be a first come, first serve. And we would also, as part of this, we would be providing a list of species and locations they would they would pick. It wouldn't be just putting in an application, not knowing what tree or where it's going. So we would plan that over the next few months. And then come the spring, we'd be planting 10 to 15 locations, assuming that all 10 to 15 were selected. If we only had 5 applications, we would do 5. But I think up to 15 for the first year.
And how are the plaques? They're just staked in the ground?
So
are
that's
they,
what
like,
we were
permanently
working on. The
staked,
first
or-
one was a little shallow, so working on a longer stake and maybe a little more sturdy. So the plaques, when we get the plaques for the benches, like that bronze, those tend to be $225. So that's why we put that price about $200 on the plaque, because that's what they are costing. So they would be sturdy enough they could go into the ground and not easily knocked over. And they would be in that mulched pit. Our typical tree planting detail is a 4-foot mulch pit, so it would be within that pit, so it would be protected from lawnmowers or weed whackers. And it would be, granted, someone could pull it out, but it would be pretty hard. It would be, I think it's about 12 or 18 inches in the ground that we're working on that stake.
So I know the cost of watering is probably the big upkeep. How long until the tree is established that we have to do that watering?
So 2 watering seasons is what we're planning for all of our new trees. I would say the watering program here, as you
Yeah,
see, has been
yeah.
very successful. So that tractor you see behind it, that John Deere we purchased, it was about $17,000. We did purchase it through a grant. That it's not, it can't have a license plate, so that vehicle is going to stay on that whole parcel, which includes the high school, Harrington, the Harrington Fields, Graniteville. So potentially some donations could be in that area, thinking, because we will have that vehicle there for at least the next year or 2. So we could fold in maybe 5, 6, or even 10 trees to that watering program. We do have a cooling corridor grant out right now to request additional plantings, and I did target trees in the Friendship Park area, just knowing we eventually want to add more tree canopy in that area as well. And I'm looking to maybe if we start to add clusters of trees in that area, you could have another vehicle potentially in that area. $17,000 is a lot, but it's not when you're doing a watering program, because a watering program just for one season for 20 trees can be $6,000-$7,000. So if you have multiple trees in multiple years, you almost pay for the vehicle, and the vehicle can be used for other, it could be used for various other resources too. So it's a asset to the town. And we've been very fortunate with the senior volunteer program. So we have 2 people right now that are doing this. They're rotating every other week. They go out early in the morning, and it's been a very successful program. So. The watering is a challenge, which is why we want to pilot it, see how it goes, and put clusters. I think it would be difficult if we said, okay, here's 15 locations sprinkled throughout the town. We do need to focus on 2 or 3 locations that first year or first couple of years. So 2 years, so it would be you plant by beginning of June, you would water through September, and then you would start watering again next season, sometime in probably May. If you have a rainy spring, it might be a little later, but definitely it's really important during that following summer. So typically 2 years to establish that tree.
So I guess I would favor this on a couple of conditions. One, that you do cluster, and, that you identify where those clusters were gonna be, because I know there are some locations where we probably would not want something like this. So, if it's gonna be a pilot, I don't know how, Paul, do you have any thoughts on that about?
No, I would support the pilot. I think Christine, is aware of an issues that may arise that would cause concern, and I think she would come back, to the board if there was something, and then, but barring the unforeseen, as you said, locations like by the schools or Friendship Park, I think would work out fine. But if there's something that's cause of concern, we would bring it back to the board.
Those are likely the 2 locations. We just didn't publish anything yet because we wanted some feedback, but likely for the first year, and where we already have equipment at the high school grounds, that would just be potentially, that's such a large area that we could potentially pilot it along with Friendship Park.
Based on how many requests you currently are getting, do you think that you will get 10 to 15 a year?
So this is, we do not know. So we've only, I guess it was actually Kevin that brought it to he thought this was a great program, something he wanted to do. And we thought it was a great idea to promote, people might think, oh, I want to donate, let's donate for a tree. Because I think what I'm hearing from the donations, people don't know what to donate. When I met a resident last week about the bench, that she's like, we have some money and we want to donate something back to the town. So I think by advertising and posting it, you would hopefully get more than we typically see.
Yeah.
And this is something, benches are great too, but it's just another purpose for people might want to donate for a tree. So I guess that's a test to see. So if we get 30 applications, and that's a very successful program, and we can only take so many, we might
I
get,
love
we
the
might get
idea
5.
of all the trees, but for some reason my brain is picturing all of the plaques. If you were doing 20 a year over the course of 10 or 20 years, that's a lot of plaques kind of all over the ground everywhere.
And I
then
don't think
the
we're
lump.
gonna honor the replacement of those plaques in perpetuity.
No,
because
it's
they start
basically
disappearing,
you're
yeah.
purchasing for 2 years,
Yeah.
but those plaques stay in place. We're not going to remove them in 2 years, but hopefully the tree survives too. But yeah, those plaques would be there. The thing is, we have benches that when the benches do rot, we have replaced some benches, and so we try to keep a memorial in place, and we'll put those plaques back on. So it's not a policy required, but it's something
I'm
we
just
have
curious what
done.
happens when the plaques become.
But that's what happened, like the old fire station site on North Road. There are some original donations there that have to be replaced, and so we're doing that to replace the some of the tables and such that were placed there,
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
they age out.
But I think what I hear you saying is like, if we're doing 20 trees a year, it's 20 plaques a year. In 5 years, it's 100 trees with 100
And in
plaques.
20 years, that's
Great.
400
Right.
plaques around town
Right.
that are just sticking out of the ground around all these trees, and you're
I mean,
maintaining.
I'm not,
No,
I'm
if
not
you
sure
want
what
an
the
example of the
alternative-
I love
plaques,
the idea of the trees. It's just the plaques that
if you
gives
want an
me a
example
little
of the
bit
plaques, go through the cemetery, because they're very similar to the temporary markers that they put before headstones put in the
Yeah.
grave space.
But
so.
these are not flat. These are
No, these
sticking
ones
out of the
stick up, same
ground.
type
Yeah.
of thing.
They're small enough that you're not gonna walk by a tree and say, like, it's still, you almost have to go up to it and see what it says. We did talk about maybe putting this tree species on there too, so we're still working out the details of the plaque.
With somebody who has children, like I can tell you right now, my children are going to be trying to rip every single one of those plaques out of the ground. I'm just giving you some work.
I think it's fair to say as a pilot, 10 is probably a
Yeah.
good number. Like, I think 20 years aggressive. I think if we say we're targeting, I just don't want to say we're targeting 2 or 3 and then people think, I think 10 is a good number to pilot. See, because what if I only have 2 applications come in? What if I have 10? Then I guess we have to revisit, say, next year, do we want next year to be 20? Do we want it to be 15? So we say 10 to 15. But I'm leaning towards 10 for that first year at least.
I think it's worth it and see how they look. And again, if it's a pilot and they don't pop out right, we can always discuss making changes to it.
Modifications.
And we can continue to give updates too. So
Yeah.
we'll see how. We're interested to see how popular it is, and we also will be launching other programs, back a sidewalk programs as well, or front yard programs, and so there'll be other opportunities for people to plant trees in their front yard too. This is particularly for town property and in memorial of someone.
So Christine, if we go forward with this, once everything's put together, I would suggest going to the Business Association, ask them to put it in their newsletter, because I know a lot of local businesses would probably
That's a good idea.
like to do something like that.
So are there gonna be any restrictions on what it says on the plaque? I mean,
So we usually, in any memorial, we ask what they want it to say. Sometimes they'll be, but it can't be very, very long. It has to be fit a certain size. And I think we will also put parameters on, there'll basically be a form that they fill out. We give a little bit of, sometimes if there's like a phrase or if they're in loving memory of, so I guess there'll be a little bit of wiggle room, but there will be a format for them to follow. And we did talk about putting the tree species potentially on there as well.
okay, so I guess 2 things. I mean, one having to do with what Jeff just said. I mean, wouldn't that be considered an advertisement if it was a business that wanted their business name on that plaque? I mean, would that be allowed?
Yeah, I'm trying. Right now we do not have any restriction. Right now, when we do the benches, we say, "What do you want it to say?" And then but it's usually basically in loving memory of, and so I guess it's been kind of a standard format. We don't have any written policy, but it's typically it's very similar every time in terms of in memory of.
So it's just like our monuments and memorials policy, basically, but the DPW wants discretion over managing it for trees
Just for the
specifically.
trees.
Yeah, but like we have a policy.
Well,
that
we
outlines
would, I guess,
specifically.
adhere to that policy if there's certain parameters in that policy. In terms of like, what it can say or.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything in there about what the plaque could say, so.
No, there isn't. It's kind of at our discretion, yeah.
Right.
So you're just asking for, you would
But
have
like
the
Aaron
discretion over
mentioned,
the
that if it
trees.
starts looking like a bunch of billboards, we can revisit it and modify it.
Yeah, the intent is it's, I guess, in memory of someone and not, I guess, an advertisement.
Yeah.
So that's the intent, and we'll try to stick to that intent.
It's called Memorial Tree Program, not tree advertising
Right.
Yeah.
program.
Adopt a park or.
Yeah, no, it's not adopt a corner or
Yeah, it's not
intersection.
adopting a tree. I mean, there'll be, like I said, there'll be the front yard sidewalk program that will also be launching. We actually talked about bringing that to you tonight as well. That's something we're gonna launch, but I think we're not quite there yet. We wanted to focus on this and then that, but that will be soon right behind it, where people will be able to put trees in their front yard, which is, I think, great. Other communities are doing that as well. Because it's hard, we're limited in being able to put those trees in the sidewalk area, given how you need to have 4 feet now clearance for ADA, and sidewalks are only 5.5 feet typically, so.
So have you ever, are you aware of the program that they had many, many years ago at Red Wing Farm, which was similar to this? I think they were apple trees that were planted in the grove in the back, and a lot of them had plaques, and I know my sister got one for my mother, and I can't even find the plaque anymore, and I don't know if it grew into the tree or what. It was very small. It was, not much bigger than a 3x5 card.
Okay.
Was it staked into the ground, or was it like on the tree?
I
I'm
think
very
it was
curious
close
about
to the tree, so a tree could have grown around it, quite frankly,
Ah.
and so.
I've seen
Huh.
them at various estates, like in I know Rhode Island, where they're in the tree, and I just don't understand how the tree grows with it. I don't know if they're put on a certain or they upkept. So the thought was you put this separately, just so there's no interaction, I guess, with how the tree grows.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with a pilot for
Yeah.
it.
I'll give it a
see how
go.
goes.
Yep.
For sure.
All right.
Okay, so
we
do we
need
need
a
a,
motion?
do we need a
Yeah,
motion
you
to
have a motion.
support?
Let's do one, yeah.
Okay, Pat, I'll take a motion if you don't have anything.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the select board approve and allow the tree committee to adopt their memorial tree program of Chelmsford, to allow them to develop, initiate, and oversee a first-year pilot program of the memorial tree program.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So, good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Can't wait to see all those trees.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, we have another report and presentation from John Potts from Weston and Sampson regarding the MWRA sewer connection feasibility study. Hi.
Hi, good
Could-
evening.
Could you just state your name
Yes.
first?
My name is John Potts. I'm with Weston and Sampson Engineers, and we're here to discuss the MWRA feasibility study.
Welcome.
So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. I'm also here with Lily Orlepp, who is a colleague of mine. She'll be helping me with the presentation. So the first slide, we just talked about what the objectives of the project was, is we understand that there's a sewer capacity issue in Chelmsford. So we've been exploring options over the years, and one of those options was to connect to an MWRA community. So we're going to talk about the objectives, what the average daily flows and peak flows were of what we could transfer to the communities. We looked at alternative routes. We also looked at what the permitting and intermunicipal agreements that would be necessary. We looked at a timeline, projected costs, and then we looked at the impacts to the sewer users and what our conclusions were. So as you guys know, that the flow from Chelmsford goes to the Lowell's Duck Island Treatment Plant. The town has an agreement of 0.01 million gallons a day that can go there, of which 350,000 has been allotted or allocated to Tingsboro. So the town's share is 2.66 million gallons a day that can go. We looked at the past 11 fiscal years, and occasionally the 2.66 does get exceeded. If you see the next slide, it happened in 2018, 2019, and again in 2024. You exceeded, and this is for the total for the year. This was the entire fiscal year. That was the ending point. So you were slightly above on those 3 years out of the 11. So basically what got us to this point was in 2020, the town instituted a sewer moratorium due to the capacity. In 2023, the moratorium was lifted and you went to the sewer, the credit transfer policy. During that time, we also did some studies for the town. The next slide. In 2021, we did a full town capacity issue that was basically exploring the ability to put an in-town wastewater treatment plant within the town. But unfortunately, that was going to meet roadblocks with DEP because they're not issuing groundwater discharge permits. So that wasn't really a viable option. We also, as part of infiltration and inflow, we've been studying, we studied 4 target areas in 2022. Really, we didn't really find any infiltration in the pipes. I think I came in and gave a presentation on that years ago. But we did find some infiltration in the manholes, so we actually sealed approximately 200 manholes, which is just going in, putting a cementitious liner from the top all the way down to the bottom of the manhole, plugging leaks and sealing them. And that program was just completed over the summer. The town also instituted a sump pump program, and there's also another option is to wait for the city of the Lowell treatment plant to re-rate their plant to get a higher effluent, which would therefore the communities that go there, their share would also go up. But they're many years away from that because they're right now doing a CSO project that's going to take probably at least another 5 to 8 years to complete. So the town is being proactive with regard to the II in town. We're also going to be inspecting more sewer manholes over the next few years since we found that that was more cost effective than looking at the pipes. Because we basically did look at about 300,000 feet of pipe and we found basically no leaks, essentially. But again, the manholes we did, so we're going to focus on the manholes over the next few years, and that was presented to DEP, and they bought into that program. So that leads us to this study, which was to look at an MWRA community to see if that was a feasible option to go to. So the nearest MWRA communities are the town of Bedford and Burlington. And the pump stations that could get flow there are the Progress Avenue pump station and the Mill Road pump station. By transferring some of your flows to the MWRA, it would increase your capacities on paper. So the next slide just shows the 2 pump stations. And so in talking flows, we started to look at the flows at the 2 pump stations. For the last few years, the flow data at Progress has been a little inconsistent. And so we looked at a new flow measuring device that was installed at that pump station. So we have the 2025 data, which shows here at the 170,000. But because this has been a dry year, we added 15% on top of that. Because based on seeing that the other flows in the years have exceeded, we thought that that was a decent bump to get the flow. So the flow from the Progress Avenue that we're looking at is about 195,000 gallons per day. Then at the Mill Road pump station, for the last 6 years, we looked at all the data. Again, in 2024, the data was unavailable, but the flows from from Mill Road is approximately 392,000 gallons a day. So those are the flows that could be transferred if we rerouted the force mains from those 2 pump stations into an MWRA community. In accordance with the design guidelines, those flows need to get converted from an average daily flow to a peak flow to size the pipe. So once we did that, the flow from Progress, the peak flow is approximately just under 1 million gallons a day, and the flow from Mill Road peak flow is about 1.7 million gallons a day. So based on when we did the designs, the pipes would be an 8-inch force main from Progress and a 10-inch force main from Mill Road. And at this point, I'm going to pass it off to Lily to present the options.
Hello, I'm Lily Orlip from Weston and Sampson, and I'm just going to give you an overview of the different alternative routes that we looked at. So we looked at 5 possible routes to send some of Chelmsford's wastewater to the nearby communities. As John mentioned, the closest communities are Burlington and Bedford, and we also looked at some routes that took the wastewater directly to the MWRA interceptors. There's one in Woburn and one in Lexington. Next slide, please. So alternatives 1 and 2 connect into neighboring town sewer system, flowing through those town sewer pipes to reach the MWRA infrastructure, whereas alternatives 3, 4, and 5 all connect directly into MWRA interceptors, either in Woburn or Lexington. I'll note that all the routes flow through Billerica, and all the routes would also have to you have to upgrade the pump stations, Progress Ave and Mill Road, before the construction begins. Next slide, please. Alternative 1 is approximately 8 miles of new force main from Progress Ave pump station to the Burlington sewer system. The path through Billerica is mainly commercial with some residential area by the Burlington line. The crossings add a complexity and cost to design, so we wanted to highlight the different types of crossings that are part of each alternative. As you can see, there are 4 total here: 1 highway, a railroad, and 2 bridge crossings. Next slide, please. Alternative 2 is approximately 5 miles of new force main from the Mill Road pump station to Bedford sewer system. The path through Billerica to Bedford is mainly residential towards the Bedford line. There's only 2 bridge crossings on this route. However, we identified Bedford system has a potential of Bedford system has 2 pump stations that would potentially also need to be upgraded before construction began, on top of upgrading Mills Road pump station. Next slide, please. Alternative 3 extends alternate 1 to the MWRA interceptor in Woburn. So this would add approximately 5 more miles, totaling 13 miles of new force main. The added path through Burlington and Woburn is mainly residential with a small industrial area right before the interceptor. There is also a short easement right before the interceptor that would require special permission to build through. And there are a total of 5 crossings on this route. Next slide, please. Alternative 4 is an extension of Alternative 2 into Lexington to the other MWRA interceptor. This route is a total of 11 miles of new force main. The path through Bedford and Lexington is a mix of residential and commercial, and there's a total of 4 crossings here. Unlike Alternative 2, this would only require upgrading the pump station at Mill Road. Next slide, please. Alternative 5 diverts the flow from Progress Ave pump station into Mill Road pump station, and then this would follow Alternative 4 all the way down to the interceptor in Lexington. So this captures capacity from both pump stations, but just from those pump station tributary areas. And this is approximately 13 miles in length. This is the longest one, but you theoretically get the most capacity out of this route. And both Mill Road and Progress would need to be upgraded. Next slide, please. So any of these options will require a lot of coordination and approvals. You'll need permits from MWRA, the federal, state, and local agencies. The intermunicipal agreements are key in all this, and they will need to be made with Billerica, and depending on which alternative is either Burlington and Woburn or Bedford and Lexington. Next slide, please. These projects are long-term investments, so planning and design can take up to 4 years. The permitting and bidding would take another year, and then construction could last 3 to 5 years, depending on the route. So you're looking at a total timeline of about 10 years to finish.
So now the fun stuff of we started looking into the costs of all of this. We use linear foot prices for the pipe. There's various structures that are going to be required along a force main rate. Typically, they're every 1,000 feet. You'll require a structure to be able to gain access to that force main. We put a cost in for pump station upgrades, and then we carried percentages for pavement, construction contingencies, design, police details, other admin stuff to get into all the costs. So now the first thing I do want to stress is when you look at options 1 and 2 on all these for the pricing, they do appear to be lower and, I don't know, maybe feasible, but these do not include any upgrades that could be required in either Bedford or Burlington. At this time, we don't know what their capacity issues are. We've worked in both communities, and we do know that they have their own capacity issues, so it's too hard to put a cost on what the upgrades would be right now to that. So these are only the costs for options 1 and 2 to basically get it to the Bedford line or the Burlington line. Whereas the other options, 3, 4, and 5, get it all the way to the MWRA's interceptor. So as you can see in the first slide, we looked at the present worths, and the costs for options 1 through 5 are all range from $54 million to $38 million to $103 million, and this is present worth cost, and then looking ahead 10 years, the future worth costs, which is what I said. I read the wrong column. So as part of this, if you connect to an MWRA community, you're going to get an annual assessment from them. So we looked at the annual assessments for all the communities in the area, Bedford, Burlington, Lexington, and Woburn over the last 5 years. And we got what their average assessment was over those 5 years. And then based on their gallonage, we determined that it's approximately $1.45 per gallon per day is what you would pay MWRA on an annual basis, and that could also go up each year. Sometimes it goes down, but it typically would go up. So next slide. We based on the flows that I talked about earlier, on the average daily flows from Progress and Mill, and then the combination at the $1.45 a gallon, and then we looked at it in present worth and projected it again 10 years into the future. This time we used a 3.1% increase because that's what the 5 communities are seeing over the last 5 years. They've seen an increase of approximately 3.1%. So the future assessments that could be related to that, if you sent Progress Ave by itself, it would be $385,000 a year. Mill Road, $771,000, and if you did both, it would be approximately $1.15 million. So putting these flows into something tangible, 195,000 gallons is representative of about approximately 1,800 bedrooms or 2.6 million square feet of commercial or retail space for warehouses. 392,000 gallons a day translates to approximately 3,500 bedrooms and just over 5 million square feet of commercial and office space. And if the 587,000 translates to just over 5,000 bedrooms and just under 8 million square feet of office and industrial space. So one of the last things we started to look at was the cost per gallon of removal. So as you can see, as I was saying through options 1 and 2, like option 2 is only, it comes out to be $70 per gallon. But again, that's only getting you to the town line in Bedford. It doesn't get you to the MWRA. So that cost is, I think, artificially low in that case. So you're looking at costs that range from $70 to $310 per gallon in present worth. The next slide will present the future worths. So the future worth costs for these same options range from $100 per gallon per day up to approximately 440 gallons per day. As you can see, option 5 being the most expensive, though, that is the lowest gallons because you're sending the most gallons to another community. Next slide. So now we looked at the impact to the town sewer users. There's approximately 13,000 sewer users in Chelmsford. So we looked at the construction borrowing based on all the future worth costs, and that at a payment of 30 years with 2% interest, and that would, the middle column shows the annual payments to pay back the 30-year loan, and spread among the 13,000, that would be the each sewer user's share on their annual basis. So it ranges from 130 for option 2 up to $355 a year for option 5. Then we took the MWRA's assessment and did the same thing to spread that out among the 13,000, and based on the flows, it ranged from $30 to $90 a year. And then finally, we put them all together, and we also included a percent increase. The average sewer bill right now in Chelmsford is approximately $360 per year. So if you add the total annual costs as a result of these two projects, you're looking at increases between 50 to 124% on the sewer user bill.
You said two projects. You mean the sewer and water? No, you mean the two lines.
No, just
I'm
sewer,
sorry,
just
the
sewer.
two lines. So this is all, there's no, this
Yeah,
is all
he's just gonna
around
wrap up
sewer,
right now.
right?
He's just gonna wrap up the
Yeah.
summary.
So the summary is basically, this isn't a project that we believe that Chelmsford can do alone. It's very cost prohibitive, as I think is evident here. It's possibly you could partner with a neighboring community. If Bedford or Burlington was possibly looking into upgrading their system to increase their capacity, it might be a time to do something cooperatively. It wouldn't also hurt to start discussions if this seemed to be a viable route. Also should continue discussions with Lowell to find out where they're really at with re-rating the plant, how long it's gonna take them to see if the increase can happen sooner than later. And the last thing to point out is, I think this is probably the most critical thing, is even if you transfer the flows to an MWA community, depending on where the new flows would come into town, you'd still have to look at your capacities, because there still may be localized capacity issues in the existing pipes and pump stations for not being designed for another, say, 500,000 gallons. So it isn't necessarily going to solve all the problems. It will increase capacity, particularly in the Mill Road area and in the Progress area, because that's where you're taking the flow out of. But if you wanted to go somewhere else in Chelmsford, you'd have to look at those pipes and pump stations as well before proceeding with anything.
Yeah, that point shouldn't be overlooked, as he mentioned at the end. Pat remembers, she was here at the time. For example, we have a flow issue on Littleton Road, meaning that if we were able to send all this flow to MWRA, or even if magically we've got flow to the city of Lowell by some miracle, we have internal issues with our system because they weren't designed to enhance the flow above the forecasted purchase that the town made. So, in other words, we want to make people aware that, okay, you've got somewhere to go. But on the other hand, if, let's say, they wanted to redevelop the mobile home park into some mega development of housing and so forth, or commercial development, can't do it, because if you go to that main line that's going down Littleton Road, it's near capacity. So now you're looking at a whole cost of new pipes, pump stations and so forth to get you out of town. And so that sort of is the big thing of caution, because, and then you can imagine, start rippling that fact. And we saw that firsthand when we were talking with the West Campus redevelopment. And you may recall, they built a sewer treatment plant on site. But even if we had the capacity, they would have had real issues, because you couldn't get through, you couldn't have taken the flow from those 400 units and just sent them, through our current system to Lowell. And we had a similar issue with the town of Tingsboro about a half dozen years ago. They wanted to expand their capacity out of Tingsboro by basically moving some capacity from one side of the Volk School side and Lowell side of the river to the Chelmsford side, and we couldn't accommodate them through Southwell, because we just didn't have the flow. And so when we told them what the cost would be to upgrade Southwell, basically it just became a non-starter for Tingsboro. So we want to make this aware that this was an external treatment system, but even if the town wanted to absorb a 100% increase in its sewer rates, that you then would still have internal issues as well to deal with. And where I think my conclusion where this comes with, this is very valuable, because right now the Managed Growth Study Committee is getting launched, And this, I think, is going to be very helpful for those discussions in terms of what does this mean and where do we go? And so I think that sort of, now at least we have something to go on, as opposed to thoughts of, well, maybe we could go to Burlington or, you know, or to Bedford and so forth. And, you know, so that's sort of where we were left, and why we're here this evening, is to, you know, sort of bring it to you together to say, we looked at this. And to go to your point, Aaron, we tangentially, as we were discussing this, you said, well, if you're out there doing the work, what about running a water main back from MWRA to Chelmsford? And again, you're looking at similar costs, because obviously, you know, you've now got to expand your trench. You've still got the main lines and everything else. So we did do that, but we didn't focus on that in this summary, because we didn't want to distract people from the real core of this, which was sewer. But yes, theoretically, you could run water the other way, which has been discussed by the legislature and others. But it just goes to show you the issues, not to mention the same type of issues with sewer flow you'd have with water flow. Just because you can get water doesn't mean you can move water. And the same thing with sewer. Just because you can treat sewer doesn't mean you've got the capacity to process it in terms of your pipes. And so that's actually happened to us in Lowell, as Christine can allude. When they're doing their main replacement in Lowell, we get assessments on that, because our flow is going through those pipes in Lowell. And so that's part of the ongoing maintenance of that system, to get our effluent currently from the Chelmsford line across the city of Lowell to the Merrimack River at the Duck Island Treatment Plant.
So, yeah, to your point, this does not address our current facilities as far as water intake.
No.
This is just,
This
yeah,
is
I'm
just
like,
sewer.
this is very.
just sewer, because we wanted to keep it real clean, yeah. But we wanted to let you know that while we were doing this, we did look at the fact as well, gee, is there some benefit? Could we be running a water main the other direction? And like you said, we've just got some major issues.
But that's a completely different
Totally,
conversation.
completely,
I mean, totally
conversation,
different
yeah.
facilities,
Yep,
and like,
exactly.
I would have liked to see more about
Yeah.
the water in
Yeah.
here.
In the report itself, there
It's in
is an
there.
alternative
Yep.
4A that
Yeah.
discusses some of the water from Lexington.
Oh, where is that? Oh, not
It's in the body
here.
of the report. We didn't put it in the presentation, but in the body of the report itself, there was an alternative 4A that talks about getting water potentially from Lexington. But we didn't pursue that too much, because the focus of this was the sewer.
I mean, aren't they kind of intertwined? And that's what I was kind of trying to understand, was can we start some of these projects based on what we need now and have it kind of in place for, I don't know, and how the two can be done at the same time potentially for
wouldn't
cost
say-
savings if needed, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't say they're intertwined, because you can't really put them in the same trench with water and sewer, because DEP's not gonna go in favor of that. So it would probably double the construction costs, because you'd be
Okay.
wider trenches, separate
Yeah.
trenches. MWA doesn't have a restriction typically. There are some communities that are sewer only. There's some that are sewer and water. There's some that are water only.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it is an option, and I think Lexington was the nearest water place you could tap.
so the piping in is probably
It
similar
would be-
as to what we
it'd
see
be
here.
very similar,
But the
yes.
facility,
It'd be
the
different
ability of our
materials
current
that you'd
facilities
use
to be able to,
potentially,
the
but yeah,
impact on
they-
our facilities would be a
You
much
almost
different
double the cost
conversation.
basically to get the pipes in the same one, because you can't put it like a sewer force main and a gravity sewer. Yes, you can put those in the same trench, and that saves you money.
Yeah,
But with water and sewer, they don't always like that.
yeah, okay, thank you.
And then the other thing is, this is distributing the cost over all 13,000 users. Obviously, if you try to do a localized sewer treatment, like, oh, we're going to provide this to the business corridor on 129, you could just see the cost would skyrocket, because
Oh, yeah.
now you're not distributing over 13
Yeah.
sewer accounts, just distributing over a minor amount.
You know,
because
you'd have to do
we-
all or nothing,
Exactly,
so that
'cause
the
we
money,
thought
so
about
that
that
the
as well.
impact is, yeah.
So would there be any, so some of the capacity then would not be going to Lowell? Would there be a reduction in what we would pay to Lowell?
I mean, but then you would, no, it couldn't be, because then you wouldn't have any additional flow. So in other words, you would still send your flow to Lowell, but the problem is if you
Yeah, but you
diverted
said we
it
don't have,
here.
we can't get any additional flow without upgrading the pipes anyway.
Right.
So the flow's staying exactly as it is.
Right, you wouldn't
just
pay Lowell for
diverting.
treatment. Right, you wouldn't pay Lowell for the treatment, because
Okay.
we'd be sending theoretically lower amounts of capacity to Lowell, because you're right, you couldn't send the same amount. But the The only way you could avoid that would be is if we were then installing sewer mains, like if we wanted to do the 129 corridor and run a separate line that would then not divert anything from Lowell and then divert it down into the MWRA, but it's just costly. But the other thing to point out is,
Yeah, then we wouldn't pay Lowell anything.
right, but
yeah,
when
we
you
would
look
be
at the
out.
number of bedrooms and the capacity, the other thing is this should be seen in perspective. This was, if you saw, rerouting the Progress Avenue pump station would be the equivalent of 1,800 new bedrooms. The UMass West Campus redevelopment has 400 units. That would probably take up, almost about half this capacity if we were to build that kind of a development. And so that just puts into perspective. In other words, this, we're talking 2.6 million gallons a day where we have now. Obviously, you can talk in here about 195,000 gallons. So trying to put it in perspective that this isn't like,
it's
we're
only
now,
incremental, yeah.
and then reality, in which I think the Growth Task Force, the initial demand on this is going to be residential, right? The market out there right now, even in 129, as we've seen, would be residential. And so you would have this issue of bedroom capacity as opposed to new retail/office space. And then the other thing is, if you then introduce that level of bedrooms into, what does that do to your other infrastructure? I.e., bedrooms come with people who come with traffic, who also come with school kids, who also come with limited space and facilities to address these issues. And that was the other issue that we had to be mindful of is, oh, wait a minute. And in fact, this is even going on to discussion that's going to the planning board tomorrow, Wednesday night. The former Radisson, as you know, it's been developed into the new hotel and then the new senior adult care. Now they want to put 15 apartments above on the second floor, above where the ballroom is, that area. So that's 15, probably mostly two-bedroom units. And when we met with them last week in discussion going into the planning board for a preliminary discussion last week, we're like, where's your bus stop? And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, if you put 15 two-bedroom units in the Radisson, you're going to need a bus stop because you're going to have some children. I'm not saying you're going to have 15 children, but even if you have five children, then again, you've got to accommodate that. Meaning, you've got to, where's the bus going to come? Where are they going to drop off? Where are they going to pick them up? And so again, that just, it's sort of the whole thing. And that's why I'm referencing the growth strategy thing is every action has a reaction. And therefore, when we're looking at this, in addition to breathing tightly when we looked at the cost of almost 100% increase in sewer rates, it then became, well, what are the results of this development, both internal to the town in terms of what does that do for your sewer treatment ability and flow? Because what's the reaction going to be from a business owner in Vinyl Square who says, wait a minute, my rates just went up 100%, but I can't add any more flow from my project in my area, to also the impacts of what does that then do to the other infrastructure needs in the community.
So what I'm hearing here, even with a major upgrade to Duck Island, it really wouldn't help because we don't have the ability to send more than we are.
Right, but the problem with Duck Island and Lowell is it's an island, that's appropriately named. There's no expansion capacity. And what Lowell's doing as part of their efforts, one is they're growing and they're becoming this front runner city and they're going to have growth and so forth. They're putting in these temporary holding stations like out by the stadium. But the problem with that is you can only hold so much for so long because you've got to treat, and the math only goes so far. So the short answer to your question is, you're right, Jeff. Even if Lowell could open up the spigot and say, send as much sewer flow as you want, it becomes an issue of, well, what have we got in the ground in terms of what you can send capacity to? And they said that was a real issue, years ago when Tingsboro wanted to change their flow, and it was a discussion going back to the West Campus about they wanted to send their flow, and like, okay, you can do that, but you're going to have to rebuild the pump station and the pipe to get it to Lowell.
Do we have the full report for this?
Yes, yeah.
Was it sent to us?
Yes, that's in the packet. That's the that's
Right
the
up
document right there, the dated August 29th, and that has the brief mention of the MWRA water as well.
Oh, at the end here?
Yeah, we put it
okay.
afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, so that is the only page, no, not page 17. Which page is it? Page 14? Is that the only mention of drinking water?
Yes.
Is that the only reference to drinking water in here?
Yes.
So what are we looking for tonight? Just a,
It's just a status report with you. At this point, as I said, our next thoughts are, one is we share it with the growth management committee that's going forward from here. And then two is, when we're at the Middlesex 3 and we're talking to our colleagues in Bedford and, which is obviously the town manager there, we know well, Matt Hanson, and then Burlington, who has a new manager and so forth, that we obviously continue dialogue with those folks to say, hey, look, if there's a need, in terms of what you have in your community or a need arises, I guess the only solution, and that really that could be the magic fund, because the only funding we know that's available right now would be a low interest or grant loans from the state through its, infrastructure programs. However, if there was some development that created jobs and economic development along the Route 3 corridor, then there might be the impetus to get the Commonwealth to invest significant money in order to create that kind of growth on the Route 3 corridor that could benefit the Bedfords and the Burlingtons and Chelmsfords in terms of that flow. But right now, that doesn't exist.
That would just be other cost offset. We still have issues
Right.
in the rest of town. So just real quick, and if I cut you off, Pat, sorry.
That's all right.
If we do nothing, and we hope that there's some future capacity, if we just say there's no growth opportunity because this is truly limiting, what would cause sewer volume to increase? So if we don't allow just draconian, we don't allow any more building, right? Is the sewer capacity to Lowell ever going to increase? Is there other ways that's, in other words, do we have to do, we may not like this answer and it may not be the right solution, but do we have to do something in the future? Because there's going to be some level of growth. I just can't imagine we're going to have maintained zero.
The biggest threat you're going to have is inflow and infiltration in the future. Our sewer system is relatively new.
Yeah.
When a system ages, you get more inflow and infiltration because the aging, and that's when you get, the cracks and all this, and it comes in, and we saw some of that early on even in our system. That's going to be the issue over time in terms of that system ages and then you're getting flow in. The bigger challenge is, and this is one, if you think about it, if we were going to spend $100 million, it would be a heck of a lot easier and cheaper and more effective to go and disconnect everybody's sump pump that's illegally tied into the sewer system and put a drain to the storm drain. Because that's the problem. The problem that they didn't include in the calculations for this Chelmsford build-out was the inflow and infiltration into the system. And as John noted in his comments earlier, 15% differential on a dry year versus a wet year. And if you saw that issue of the flows, that's the story right there. Go back to the very beginning of his presentation. Look at these flows. In 2025, you're down to the 2.33 million gallons per day. In 2024, where it rained, it was 2.92. That's a factor of 20%. Okay, that's the story. So why were we doing all the moratoriums and everything? And because of 18 and 19, we were exceeding capacity. But you can see the last 3 out of the last 4 years have been dry years. That's the story. That's the inflow and infiltration. So the most effective thing that Chelmsford could do is, forgetting about 100 million and all the risk and the unknowns and the big dig overruns and everything you get connecting down to Bedford or Burlington, the biggest thing we could do is get to the residents and actually physically pay. It'd be cheaper for the town to pay to run the lines from their, sump pump connections to the town storm drains. You'd be a winner. But the problem is nobody wants to open their home. Because even when we offered a program for free, nobody came. That's because I get it. Nobody's going to rely on the trust. Oh yeah, trust us. There'll be no charge, right? Because people rightfully have been burnt in the past by other, government and private promises. But that's the real story in Chelmsford and everywhere is the fact that it's the inflow and infiltration that's killing the systems, and understandably so. Nobody wants water in their basements or and all the health implications from mold and everything else that you have around your home. So rather than saying put it out in your yard, it's like, no, I'm going to put it into basement line into the sewer, it goes away. But that's the real issue and the real solution.
Not doing something though is not also an option. Again, look at these numbers today on the surface. It's a lot to digest, and I wanted to hear the presentation before I really digested it all. But yeah, I think we're going to need to be creative.
Madam Chairwoman, when I can, please.
Sure, go ahead. Thanks.
I just have one quick question, Paul. Is there any initiatives to find out what the cost to upgrade the internal systems so that we could have a complete look when the managed growth strategy group starts to look at this, and not just the Weston and Sampson report? Is there any initiatives for any in-house estimates of upgrades of our own systems that would be required to increase capacity?
We don't have that now. That's something we could look at, but that would be huge. We could look at that, and I mean, what we could probably do is do a pilot. Like, we could start with Littleton Road.
Pick an area
Pick
like
an
we
area
did
like
with
Littleton
Littleton
Road, as
Road.
we described about, and say, what would it take to replace that main on Littleton Road, the length of that main, and then from there, then that's, sort of do an analysis going forward.
With 41 pump stations and a lot of them interacting with each other, you're right. It isn't just a quick thing. You could be impacting 4 different sub areas and 3 different pump stations that are all linked. One goes to the next, one goes to the next. So,
but the Weston and Sampson report does not give the complete picture that it would take to increase flows.
I think Christine, did you have something to add to that? Did you want to address Pat's? I think Christine is standing up. I think she might be able to address your question.
We didn't do that because we know it's just a very, very large cost. And so I guess you'd have to look at each system, each roadway segment to see where it increased capacity. But we have 190 miles of sewer. So we'd have to, I guess, look at maybe the trunk lines and see. So updating some portion of that, I mean, if you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars if you're talking the whole system, but then you have pump station upgrades, so it has to be some percentage of that. We could probably do that internally. Well, my rule with, because not just the pipe, it's sometimes you have to relocate a water, you have to repair the roadway, so it's like $1,000 a linear foot is just a really high level cost.
That's all it needs to be, is high level.
190. I mean, I just did the math. You're at over $1 billion right there. So that's just that's looking at the whole road, the whole system. I mean, we could look a little more to see, like, if you look at the arterial roadways, and we can put that together. But I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars is my estimate without pulling out a calculator. Maybe it might be in the billions, but we can run that. And then the other, I think what Paul, kind of tagging what Paul said, is like really the answer is to start really building out the storm drain system. So our storm drain system is our newest system. That's the newest division we have. We are still updating the GIS to make sure we're accurately reflecting where everything is. And the connections of that, we have our CCTV truck for stormwater now separate from our sewer. So we've done a lot of CCTV inspections. You can do more in-depth inspections where you basically sit in a line and see what type of sources of inflow can come in sewer mains. So that's where we're trying to target, between smoke testing, between additional popping manhole covers. I think that's part of the solution to try to tackle that 10 to 20%. That's not, I guess, a good long-term solution, but it is an answer. And so that's where we're trying to target that annually. What will be before fall town meeting too is the Westford Street, adding an extension of storm drain so that we can offload some people from the sump pumps. There were about 200 people that townwide that responded to that program. Of the 200, only 15 potentially have eligible pumps that could be disconnected, and a couple of them are on Westford Street, and that's where if we can add a storm drain system that offloads the sewer system, and that also provides the separation. So separation or inflow removal is the short-term answer for as we still allow some development.
And so what do we do in the short term, immediate term? So for example, going back to the Radisson redevelopment, if they're going to put the 15 apartments in, they're going to pay a sewer capacity fee of
Yeah, so
hundreds of
it's-
thousands of dollars
Yeah.
to the DPW, which we could then take that money and do some of this inflow work to make, keep the system running.
Yeah, so that's right now it's at a 2-to-1 ratio, so $35 a gallon, really it's $70 a gallon. So some of these fees are costing hundred thousands of dollars for the larger developments, and I think we have 2 that are right now in the actually signed and executed, and then we're working on 3 or 4 right now. And so that what we do is I guess to be responsible, we've created this sewer bank where we take inflow out of the system, and then we track that, and then we're adding inflow in the system, whether it be ADUs or developments. And so we're trying to always replenish that bank as we're selling from that bank. I guess that's the responsible way to track that. Obviously, inflow and infiltration as infrastructure ages, that's going to be it's hard to track every source of infiltration because it's kind of a fluid situation because you could have new infiltration appear. But that's what we're doing is tracking what we're adding to the system and what we're taking out of the system to try to, I guess, summarize that annual bank of what's coming in, what's coming out.
So I think, Christine brings up the most obvious one. So we don't necessarily have to allow any sort of growth, but we're going to get growth because you can build ADUs now. That could be 2 people. How many more gallons per day times per year? So something has to be done. Again, anything we can get infiltration makes sense, but whether, to Pat's point, whether this is even just another $100 million is already cost prohibitive. And as it's presented today, I know there's a lot more detail. That probably doesn't mean cheaper either. Okay.
Pat, did you have any other questions? Pat
Nope.
Maloney? No?
No, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I just have one more question. Sure. Did we get any numbers on the impact? I see the numbers on the impact to sewer users, but do we have any numbers on the impact to water users in here?
I don't
Is
have
it
that.
similar percentage-wise, or?
Probably. I really not positive,
Okay,
but
okay. Anybody? No? Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate
I
it.
have one thing to add for the water, just to add
Sure.
on too, is, well, I guess we started down that path, but the thought was, I guess if we do need to add water, there is the opportunity to add water from Lowell. And so the thought was, okay, if we're adding water, you can add from Lowell. They don't have as much of a capacity restraint as Duck Island. So I guess I don't know why we would be adding water when it's potentially double the cost. So I guess there is an ability to add an easier ability to add water to the town system from Lowell, and that would probably be much cost effective. And also when you look at the dollar, like what we're charging for water versus MWRA, MWRA is one of the it's great water, but it's very expensive. So I guess the impact.
Yeah, I was wondering how expensive exactly.
I think
that was my.
we
I was
didn't
curious.
go down that path just because we knew it was much more. It would probably not be cost effective just from looking high level at where we have Lowell water still available to us.
Yeah, you're not going to install 11 miles of pipe down to Bedford and Burlington when you're already connected in East Chelmsford to Lowell. Just a no-brainer.
I thought we were talking about water later.
We are talking about waterway, but it was just to explain why we didn't continue to emphasize the water cost coming. It's like, no, nobody rationally would make that choice because
Yeah.
the cost is just prohibitive. Not to mention the cost uncertainty.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Christine.
So I guess the town needs to start playing Powerball on a regular basis.
Yeah. Okay, licenses is done. So next up, we have the installation of a memorial bench at Roberts Field for Sandy Rainey. So I can speak to this. I fielded this, and I met with Christine and Bob Silk at Friendship Park a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at where they were talking about putting this bench that they want to place for Sandy Rainey, who was fairly involved in things at Roberts Field, and who I think everyone, a lot of people in town are familiar with. She was involved in a lot of things. And the Bob Silk from the Lions Club wanted to donate this bench to Friendship Park in her honor. They were thinking of a couple of spots on one side of the park, and then as we were walking around, we realized that there is a big kind of blank space in the back left corner there, right between two fairly young trees, that looks like it could use something, and where there's no other benches or anything really. So there's a couple of pictures here. You can see the bench, you can see the spot between the trees. Christine Clancy was with us and had no issue with the spot, and we discussed that the bench looks a little bit different than some of the other ones that have been donated around town, but she approves of that as well. She didn't have any concerns. Yeah, and that's it. It's a nice bench. Yep, and they said if the bench becomes unusable due to normal wear and tear or any time in the future, they would be okay with its disposal. That's about it. It's pretty. We found a good spot where there's nothing there, so I think it'll be a nice addition to the playground. There's a few over on the right-hand side, or depending which way you go in. But over on the Junie's Place side, there's a few there, but this particular side of the park, of the playground doesn't have anything. So that's it.
So I think I just have a question. Obviously, I support these things. But I think there's a standard, and Christine can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a standard for the benches and stuff that have gone along the rail trails. So why would we, I'm assuming that maybe they've already bought this bench or donated it, and that's the example, so they just want a place to put it, versus putting in a standard bench that would last a lot longer than.
So Christine, do you want to, so I think the ones that I've done over the past couple of years have been the metal ones, but, so we talked about this when we were here, Christine.
Sure. So yeah, we've kind of shifted towards more the metal, and then along the rail trail, we do have a composite material similar to this, but we have a certain standard. And so that is, I guess, our desire to kind of have these, pick from these two standards. But when we met with Bob Silk, they had already purchased this bench.
Okay.
And so that's why I was like, well, I don't want to have to replace that bench with that bench in a couple of years. So he said, if in 3 years it's vandalized, they're okay with it being, at that point, abandoned. And so that was, I guess, the agreement. I did also, at least before I could say yes, I had to also have it checked to make sure we can easily put it, we wanted something that is placed in the ground. So our highway department picked it up and looked at it, and it's going to be anchored a little differently, but we can do it. And actually, we could start it this week. So it is composite. It's not wood, which is, that's much better than some other. I guess so we don't have official standards written anywhere in our policy, but we've kind of leaned towards that one metal bench and then the composite ones you see along the rail trail.
But part of the reason, and she explained to us that the material on this bench is fine, but it's the metal ones are less prone to the vandalism. You know what I mean? It's easier to clean them up or whatever. So, and these ones are a little bit more difficult, which is the only kind of downside. But
Yeah, again, they made the investment in the bench, and I support these, but, I think we've talked a lot about it, and again, I think these things are important, and every bench, again, I've had people say you can't get enough benches along some of the walking paths, so, I just, I prefer a little bit of the standard so that they last and that they're not maintenance nightmares and those things, but I'm fine with that.
anybody else? Pat, you have anything? No? Okay.
Make a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion.
Yep, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the request for a memorial bench as presented.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we're gonna do a roll call. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up we have signing the warrant for the October 20th fall annual town meeting.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, before you this evening is the warrant for the October 20th fall annual town meeting. There's 35 articles, 17 of which are zoning, of which those 17 zoning, 12 of them, in speaking to the planning board chair, Chris LaValle, would be considered under a consent agenda, meaning they'd be bundled and taken up at one time. So the thinking in terms of my communication with the moderator and with planning board chair Chris LaValle is town meeting would open on Monday the 20th. We'd start with the beginning of the warrant. As you can see, the beginning of the warrant traditionally in its format, get as far as we can with all the financial articles and other articles. And then the second session on Thursday would be start with the bundling, and then whatever isn't completed, left over from Monday night, aside from the bundle, we then would resume and finish at that point. So the hope and goal is to have it be a 2-session town meeting. But why I mention that is where there is, 12 articles on a consent agenda bundle, and it starts under Article 15, you don't want to get partially through and say, oh, let's adjourn and pick this up on Thursday night, because then it just gets repetitive and unwieldy. So that's the thinking in terms of that. The only changes from what I presented to you 2 weeks ago at your previous meeting was Article 11 was added at the request of the school superintendent and school committee. This had to do with the closeout of the town's fiscal year and free cash. Long story short, an early payment at the end of fiscal '24 that was provided by the state for special ed circuit breaker out of district tuitions. They had to close out the subsequent fiscal year, and I guess where the miscommunication was, they thought where it was an early payment for 25 that the state was providing assistance at the end of 24, that payment would then carry into 26. But when Darlene went to close the books, the Department of Revenue said, no, you've got to close that out. So because that was a loss of over $400,000 incorporated into their financial plan, that then got pushed into the free cash, we're just going to basically restore it into the budget. So there's no cost to the tax levy, no cost to the taxpayer. It just was, a sort of a snafu or miscommunication on that. And then the other article is Article 35, which was this requested town meeting authorization to dispose of a tax possession parcel on Monmouth Avenue. John Souza, who's our finance director, treasurer, collector, he's the one obviously who administers the sale of tax collection properties. The last time we did this, we had to bring it to town meeting per the direction of council for authorization. So we're putting this placeholder on, and then John will continue to work with council and when we get into the presentations at your next meeting and coming up to the finance committee, this is a vacant, third of an acre parcel of land that's non-buildable. And in the past, the interest has always been, interests of those tend to be the direct abutters, because they could then expand their yard or put an accessory dwelling unit on and so forth. So that's the intent here. So that's what the warrant is this evening. And so with your vote this evening, and your signatures, we'll send it out to the constable tomorrow for posting, and then FinCom will be in this room on Thursday evening, this Thursday evening, and then the following Thursday evening to hear presentations on the articles, and then they'll wrap up their votes at the end of this month. And then 2 weeks from tonight, we'll do the review to the select board, and then you'll have that meeting, and then your first meeting in October for any concerns.
And we make our
votes by the board.
recommendations
Yep.
2 weeks, right?
Yep.
2 weeks
Yep.
from today.
And if there's anything of concern, we can visit that at your meeting on October 6th.
So we won't know the finance committees?
No, you will. You will know the finance committee's recommendations.
Okay.
Before
22nd?
your votes. Yeah. Yep. When you come back in 2 weeks, because they're meeting this Thursday and next Thursday, so they'll hear the presentations, then they're going to vote in 3 weeks. So you'll have your presentations before knowing their votes. If you want to hold off on your votes so you hear their recommendations, then we could do it on October 6th. The reason we don't wait everything till October 6th is it doesn't give you any time, because that's our last meeting before town meeting.
Right.
So that's why we'll do the presentations in 2 weeks, and you can decide whether to vote at that time, or if there's anything you want further information on, we can come back and deal with that on the October 6th meeting. And also, I know Select Member Maloney's not going to be here on the 22nd, so that could be another reason to, if you want to, it's however the board wants to handle it.
My preference is, in the past, as you know, is to once we get a presentation, to make a vote then, just as a courtesy to the presenter.
Yeah, and we've been looking at these, most of them, for a month already, so by then you've pretty much figured
And
out.
so we'll have, we've invited Chair LaValle to present, 'cause, you know, because the 17 zoning articles, he'll be there. He'll also be there at the town meeting information session on the Wednesday before town meeting to present it to the town meeting
I've
reps as well.
caught some of the planning board meetings discussing these articles, and they put a ton of work into this.
Yep. So the action now is we need a motion to approve and sign the warrant as presented.
Okay, if nobody has anything, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve and sign the warrant as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. Approved.
Quick question, Paul.
Yeah.
How do I go about providing my signature?
When I don't know when you're gonna be by, but it can go out without your signature, or we can find some other way of getting your signature on there.
I won't be back in town until the weekend, so my earliest time that I could get in to sign would be next Monday.
Okay, yeah, well, it'll go out without it, and then we can get it afterwards. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have independent assessment of the consolidation of the water districts located within the town of Chelmsford.
Yeah, let me just give some intro on this. Back at our meeting on June 2nd, we discussed the consolidation of the water districts. At that time, the board said, let's provide the 3 water districts with 3 months' notice, that we want to have a discussion on September 15th, which would be a week from tonight. That correspondence, as you can see a copy of it, went out on June 6th to the 3 water districts. And then on August 4th, I sent a reminder to the 3 water districts saying the board wants to meet with you on Monday, September 15th at 6 p.m. to discuss the consolidation of 3 water districts. A week later, I heard from the chair of the Chelmsford Water District, who informed me that the representatives of the 3 water districts would not be honoring the request of the select board back on June 6th to meet on September 15th to discuss the consolidation of the water districts. And I informed them that the board members would be discussing this matter this evening on September 8th. So that's sort of the prelude to this. What I have for you is a proposal that gives a scope. Public Works Director Christine Clancy and I have talked to multiple consultants over the summer, and I think this proposal just gives a clear understanding. I'm not saying in terms of what it is we're looking for, what we're talking about, and hopefully it gives you that understanding, and then we can see where that brings us. And so I'll just quickly summarize a couple of things. First one is we've chosen companies that have not done any business, to our knowledge, with any of the players. So we didn't go at Weston and Sampson because my feeling was if we went to Weston and Sampson, say, oh, well, they do business with the town, they've got an interest or a bias. So that was the first thing we stayed away from. And what we're looking to do is have an independent assessment regarding the potential consolidation of the water districts, the 3 water districts. And really the point of this is whether the water takers from the 3 water districts would be better served by consolidation into one unified district. And the reason for this is in the year 2025, the costs and expertise required to address issues such as PFAS, the regulatory requirements, the capital infrastructure needs warrant this type of analysis. How this would unfold is any consultant that's brought on board would meet with the relative officials, meaning select board, members of the district, staff, and so forth, to discuss the expectation and clarify objectives and the framework for the collection. And then they basically would go from there, as you would expect a consultant would do, is they would step back, look at the district's governance and organizational models, their structure, and then look at whether a change could improve transparency, increase voter participation, and strengthen accountability. But the core of the assessment is to compare the district's operating budgets, debt service obligations, staffing models, and rate structures, and to see whether efficiencies could be gained through consolidation in terms of billing, purchasing, emergency response, administration, in both the short and long term, in terms of what impact that would have on water takers under a consolidated model as opposed to three separate organizations. And as you're doing that, what would have to take place is you need an assessment of the condition of the infrastructure and equipment across all three districts, evaluate the age, adequacy, and investment history of the systems, to identify any disparities across the districts, which we know there are. There has to be, just by the fact that there are three, in terms of their capital investment and long-term sustainability. And then where those inequities exist, then you would recommend, well, how would you, account for that in terms of rates or surcharges within those legacy districts in order to be fairness in terms of a unified district, so that you're not overburdening any one subset of the ratepayers. And then at the final stage would be a review of the legislative and legal framework for consolidation, with a final report with presentations, finances, comprehensive scenarios and recommendations. They estimate this could take up to 6 months to do this work, and you're probably talking somewhere around $37,000 or so, or about $1,000, about $1 per resident of the community to get this done. So that's sort of my perspective is what's being sought here. This has, that's, I think it hasn't been looked at in generations, and I just think it would be helpful. Just like what we just did earlier this evening. We have a better understanding in terms of our sewer capacity constraints and if And I think in this case, the issue of consolidation, is worthy to look at, because if it's a great idea that they stay independent, then that's what the study will show, and that hopefully be the outcome. But on the other hand, if it says that, geez, similar to communities like Tewksbury and Billerica and so forth, one system may more adequately be more cost-effective. Just like in our own community, we have one housing authority, we have multiple elementary schools, but we don't have separate school committees and school op districts. That's sort of what we're trying to get at. So I'm going to stop there because I'm sure you may have questions, and Christine's here also to address any questions or concerns that you may have, because that's, I think, hopefully a good scenario about what would this entail, how long would it take, what would it cost, and why.
So regardless of what an assessment may show, we'd still have to go in front of the state for this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd have to bring it to the legislature. They're the ones who create the districts, and they would would want local action, and I think they'd look for the town, and whether that would be through some kind of a meeting or a ballot question or what have you. I think they'd want some indication of the community. Is this what you want? Because as you know, when you submit a petition to the legislature, they're going to basically say, well, who's submitting this, and is this what the community is looking for?
But this is not, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, it would have been much nicer to be able to have everybody here in the room. But first question is, we can't do this unless they choose to participate, right? This is not a study that can be done
No, you can, because as we noted in the thing, you can do this by the public records law.
Okay.
You basically, in other words, you could basically say, if you choose not to cooperate, we're going to submit you Freedom of Information Act request saying, okay, present us with your capital plan, present us with your billing system, present us with your infrastructure. Just like if somebody asked that of us.
And the other thing is, this is not about the town taking over water. This would be about consolidating into a single independent district.
That's correct.
With a board and all that stuff. So I think that's really important for people to know, because there's been good and bad across the country of towns taking over water or not. And so as long as people understand that, and as long as we can get the data, I think the investment of $37,000 to see if it makes sense, to keep them separate or not. I think I worry about, independently, can they survive, especially as costs for PFAS and those things come up. So I want to make sure that the people, that Chelmsford, all residents are serviced by the equivalent service of water.
Yeah, if I may, one of the concerns that sort of piqued my interest in is we have one water district, to say with this, East Chelmsford Water District has 750 customers, users. How does that survive in the year 2025 when we're dealing with PFAS, the infrastructure needs, and so forth? And when I've met with them, as you know, and I've also met with the Chelmsford Water District. And when I met with the Chelmsford Water District, they're like, well, we don't know what we'd be taking on. So we're concerned about the unknown in terms of the liability to the, water payers and water takers in the Chelmsford Water District. And so that's exactly what we're trying to get at is let's get data, objective data by a disinterested third party who can come in and say, okay, these are the facts, and then the community can decide. But no, going back to your initial statement, I can't state a benefit at this point in time, and it's not an effort by the town to take over the water districts. And that was the previous effort that Manager Lynch tried to do over 30 years ago, was the town consolidation of the districts. And that gets derailed by all different things, such as, well, where's the money going to go and all such. No, the idea was just like you've got an independent housing authority who gets elected and everything else, you'd still have an independent water district, but it would be a unified water district, not three sub-districts that comprise the town.
So I guess my thoughts on this, as you said, it's been a long time since it was really studied in depth. And quite frankly, I think the request to have that meeting did spur all three districts to start talking about it among themselves. I think that's going to happen. I don't know what will come of it. I don't know if they'll come up with any good ideas. I think us doing this is premature at this time. So I would like to see, I know they're all meeting later this week. I'd like to see what comes from that meeting, and before we just, go spend $37,000 to do something on our own. And I also wanted to ask, where would that $37,000 come from?
We have a $50,000 appropriation from Springtown meeting that could be utilized to do this. That was for efficiencies and consolidation.
And
That could
80%
utilize
of it
that.
would-
The other question I have for you, Pat, and don't take it anything to what I'm saying is that a posted meeting, and has the agenda been posted for that meeting? Because I've been looking over the last 3 months and I've not seen anything on any of the three districts about the subject of consolidation or discussion about mergers or otherwise amongst the three districts. And so that troubles me, the same reason it troubles me that they wouldn't come to our meeting, an invitation a week from that we had for a meeting next week with the select board. And so the fact that they've had consolidations and apparently there's stuff going on either without the consent of all the board members or it's going on without the public.
Or it's illegal.
Yeah, I just don't understand how they're having discussions outside of their meetings, because I don't see anything in terms of a posted agenda or any discussions, because if there were, I'd be interested in and I would be attending those meetings.
Okay, I guess the way they're doing it is just have one representative from each water district, which that's the way to begin the discussion without violating open meeting law. And that, as far as I know, is legal. But, I'm not going to defend them or defend the town. I think, as I said, I think we've gotten their attention, and I would be interested in seeing what they have to say within the next weeks or months, if they have ideas on how to move forward or why not, and if they do, how it would happen.
Eric?
Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
If Pat's done.
Pat, are you
For
done?
now.
Okay, all right. I too am disappointed that we, took so long to get a response that they were not going to come. There's many questions for each of the districts, so it just perpetuates that. I wonder, what they're maybe hiding or maybe what they don't want to fess up. I disagree that we should give them more time. Because, there was adequate time for them to have that meeting back, July, August, and then come before the board. So I don't think we're making any unreasonable requests. I myself am a water taker in 2 districts, both in my business and my personal. And I see the differences by the two districts. I reiterate what Paul said about East. The other two districts, I get letters all the time that, about the PFAS, and I have I guess I have no confidence that any of their planning or anything else provides us any sustainability with quality water going into the future. So I really think we're derelict in our responsibilities by not looking very closely at this with or without the water departments. I also have a real problem, that East is borderline very problematic. Center, I know they're planning on doing a plant, but I have no, again, confidence that that will solve the PFAS problem. And then when you look at North, threatening to sue the town for, providing, from the old DPW yard, so they're, I mean, under threat of that, to have to provide, the whole town provide just the North District if we were to lose a potential suit like that. For the whole town to have to pay for for North alone to, have a treatment plant. So I have a lot of different issues with all the different programs, and I just have no confidence that we're going to have good water in the future, 20 years down the road. And I really do believe that we're derelict in our responsibilities and not pursuing this, mostly so that we just have one group that's in charge of the entire town and worrying about the entire town. The town does not want to take this over. There's no need for the town to take this over. One independent water district is what the town needs. And having said that, I'll go back to the chair.
Well, to kind of add to Pat's point, it seems to me they're kicking the can down the road. Not responding, not be willing to come in front of us and if they fight us on an independent study, I think that speaks volumes.
So I guess I would say, that's what I'm not looking for, is a fight. I think I would hope that there would be a way that this could be handled without being confrontational. And the Center District, as you know, this week they're having a groundbreaking for a specific PFAS treatment plant. That's what it's for. So I am confident that they will have, it's going to be a few years, but they will have a treatment plant that will adequately address the PFAS issues in that district, in that water for that district.
So I agree with Pat. I think.
Which one?
Sorry. With Pat Wojcik, in terms of confrontational. I don't think we need to approach anything confrontational. However, I think not at least coming in and saying we're not prepared to talk or addressing it a different way, I feel like was a little confrontational in and of itself. They're going to need this. If they're going to talk about consolidating, they're going to need the data we're offering to pay for. And I don't like the idea of having a PFAS plant built for one district, because what if East can't afford one when they need one? And what if North needs to build one and their rates go sky high? Like, maybe it makes sense for one organization to build a PFAS plant for the town. So, and again, I know some of these things are already moving forward. And again, I think there's been adequate time. I would say, if there's some sort of meeting and the chair's going on and they want to come back in a week and say, okay, hey, we'll take your study, or hey, we don't want to do this. We don't want to make this a collaborative effort. I think our intention here is to be collaborative and provide support to the districts and
Be
the
transparent.
residents. Yeah, again, I'm going to assume right now that everybody's doing things transparently, and if they're not, that, we'll figure that out in the future again, to not be confrontational. But I do think I think it's time to probably get the study going, and if there's a meeting that Pat, that's going on, that we want to give them another week to do, another week's not going to make or break my bank, but I don't want to wait months for them to
come to us and say, hey, we got an idea, we're gonna consolidate or not consolidate, but I'm gonna also wanna see the data, because I think we owe that to the residents. So if we don't get it, then they need to provide it.
But I guess if they have this meeting and what's going to come out of the meeting? Either they're going to say, no, we don't want to study consolidation, or they're going to say, yes, we study consolidation. We're like, okay, great. Then let's all contribute $10,000 and let's get the study done. So, I can't understand why there wouldn't be a basis to look at it, because it hasn't been looked at for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what's the part that's
Well,
sort
and I
of
think
underneath it all is like, look, I'm not trying to be confrontational or anything else, but the point is let's have an independent party do the analysis and then see where it is. And yes, like any other report, if something comes back in the report that you take exception to, then let's hear about it. But if you don't get the work done, I don't understand. And if you're comfortable thinking staying as 3 separate districts is fine, well, then you shouldn't be concerned about the study, because the study should come back with the same conclusion. But if you don't get going, you're never going to know.
Right. I think, Paul, I'm just saying, if another week we don't hear anything, then I would say fire this off and get going. I'm not saying I don't want to do it. I want to do it either way, and I'm fine if they don't contribute 10,000 apiece. I'm fine with us paying for it, because I think it's the right thing to do.
So I would say that if you're gonna wait, then I prefer that you wait until after the September 22nd meeting to take a vote, because I won't be there and I want to vote on this.
I don't know how it could happen within a week, because again, they don't have posted meetings. So if there is a meeting of the chairs and superintendents, that's not a meeting that anybody can go into, to my knowledge, and say this is on behalf of their board, because their boards haven't voted.
Right, and they
or
would have
made
to
any
take it back
decisions.
to
They have
their
to take it to their board. So
You're right, yeah.
it's not going to be a week.
It'd
You're probably
be
talking
at least a month.
probably a month.
At least a month, right, considering this
Right.
set schedule of their meetings.
I don't
Not
think-
interested.
Yeah,
So how long has this been on, this agenda was posted last week?
yes.
So, I mean, they still could have responded in the last week once they know that we intended to do this analysis and agreed to come next week and speak with us.
In my email to them on August 13th, I told them that the board would be discussing this at their, on August 19th. I told the board we'd be discussing this on Monday, September 8th.
So, I mean, I think that
that goes back over 3 weeks.
Yeah, so, several months ago, we reached out to them and asked them to come in and just kind of have a casual discussion about where we're going with our water, and we did not get a response. I don't know what kind of meetings they're having, but I'm on board with going ahead with the analysis. They're not going to do an analysis that is independent and neutral, so, we need a neutral analysis. We need full transparency of their financials, and, I have concerns. I don't even understand why we're building a PFAS treatment plant, why they're not collaborating amongst themselves to do such a massive, massive project, knowing that if one district does it, they'll have to do another one in the other district. That cannot be efficient use of water taker funds. It can't be the most efficient and effective way to do those projects. And I would have liked to discuss it with them, but I don't know that that's going to happen. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what comes back from a study like this. And, I think it will be useful to them if they are having the discussions and they are looking for solutions to make, their operations run more efficiently, cost effectively, then this assessment will also be beneficial to them, and in turn to all of us who live in town. So I'm okay with it. I think it's time. I don't want to kick the can down the road anymore. It's been a long discussion that's gone on off and on for decades, from what I understand. So I think it's time to just go ahead and get some data and then see what's what, So that's my take. Having said that, do we need to vote whether to appropriate funds or what would it be to authorize?
You could authorize the manager to execute the proposal and move forward, accept the proposal and move forward if there's a motion and a vote to that effect.
I I mean, I guess one thing I would say is, you mentioned it would come from the $50,000 that was appropriated in the, so almost, I mean, basically 37,000 out of that 50 is gonna be spent on this. You know, quite frankly, I think there's other things that we could spend that money on at this point.
What is that money earmarked for
For
specifically?
efficiencies and consolidation. And what I can tell the board, and it's on this agenda, is, as you can see, and it's later on, so I'm not telling out of school, it's in perspective. We are engaged with the towns of Tewksbury to talk about public safety dispatch consolidation. We're also engaging towns like Tingsboro and Carlisle to see if we could do public safety dispatch to them on a regional basis. I'm not aware at this point in my discussion that there's any need for that, a portion of that 50,000 for those studies. So that's an example of work that we're looking for in those communities in terms of the budgetary aspects of it. And then we're also looking at the whole range of solid waste and recycling alternatives for a similar thing. But I guess what we're saying is we're doing those works either in-house or with our expertise, and in some cases we'd look for NIMCOG for help. So I don't think we'd be foreclosing anything by allocating, like I said, 80% of the 50,000 to this study. But
Well,
that's for you.
I think it's a big chunk. I agree. It's
No
a big
question.
chunk, but I also think that like our water districts, this is tackling it's a massive thing. If this were to actually be something that were to happen, the consolidation of our water districts, the financial impact on the town could be huge. So I think that allocating 80% of those funds to something like this is
It's
probably
not also out of
appropriate.
line of what we just expended to do the sewer analysis you heard earlier this evening. And,
Yeah.
that
This
didn't
is
cost-
another massive part
Yeah,
of our
this is a massive part. That wasn't,
infrastructure,
that wasn't a $4,000 study that we
Yeah.
just received.
Yeah, we're not talking about, a couple of sidewalks, a
Right.
study for a couple of sidewalks here and there. You're talking about a study that impacts the water for the entire town. I mean, I think that's a good cause. So, it is a lot of money, though. It's a lot of it, yeah.
And it's being directed towards all three districts. It's not just for one,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, if nobody has anything else, I'll take a motion. Pat, if you want to.
I'll make a motion that the board direct the town manager to enter into to enter into the contract for the proposal and quotation from Capital Strategy Solutions of Hudson, Mass, as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and another roll call vote. Pat Wojcik.
No,
Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye, so the motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Okay, next.
Next one's a little bit easier. This is a request from the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee for the board's approval for the installation of stop signs on Brentwood Road at the intersections of Lock Road and at Westford Street. This, as you know, we hear concerns from residents and obviously the Westford, Street one with the construction of the bridge going on. And I think this was forwarded to me by you, Pat, as a concern. And so we're seeking, the committee looked at it, which is the police chief, fire chief, public works director, town engineer, and so forth. And we recommend that the board install stop signs at these locations, that it does meet the criteria and recommendations that are established under the Uniform Traffic Code.
Are they putting it at the end of Lockwood, not on
the end of
Westford Street?
Brentwood, the end of Brentwood, at each end of Brentwood.
Lock,
So as you leave Brentwood, when you get to the Westford Street end, you have a stop sign, and you're at the other end at Lock Road, you have a stop sign.
but there is one there.
There is one there, yeah, but we need to vote it because we found out it wasn't formally voted. So
Oh, so at the Lock
there's one's
Road. I
already
was
there.
going to say, because
There's one already there.
I'm up
We
there
want you to
sometimes.
formally bless that because we couldn't find the vote.
There is one at Lock Road.
But we
so
want
this
one
is
more
just
importantly at
procedural.
Westford, yeah.
Okay. And the other one is,
Is that stop sign coming out, not to deviate, but I still noticed the other day, yesterday, that the stop sign at the Dalton and Westford, I thought we voted to take that out.
Yeah, Christine can answer that.
Sorry, I'm
that's
not
all
trying to go off topic.
No,
It
no,
just
it's
popped into my
related,
head
it's
when I'm
related.
looking at the map.
I believe we were going to monitor traffic fall,
Okay.
and the feedback initially is that everything seems to be, obviously traffic has increased with school starting, but we're monitoring that to see if it needs to come out.
I mean, I was thinking it was out, so I'm driving along and all of a sudden everybody in front of me comes to a complete stop for traffic that's not coming from the left.
I'll double check with our town engineer, but I
think that's just
imagine, I think
habit.
we're
It's fine.
more monitoring it
Yeah.
to see if it needs to.
I know it's there, it's all right, but I just thought we took it
I
out.
think I stopped at that the other
Alright.
day. It's just habit.
I stopped too, because I had to. So you just
Okay.
need a motion, yeah.
I'll take a motion if nobody has anything else. Pat,
I'll make a motion that the board authorize the installation of stop signs on Brentwood Road at the intersections of Lock Road and Westford Street as presented.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes,
I'm a yes.
thank you.
Next up, town manager bid awards.
Just one this evening. This is for Public Works for the fire protection and fire suppression at the town clerk's record storage project. As you can see in the memo, DPW held a bid opening on August 20th. There were 2 bids received. This was a project that we estimated was going to cost $155,000. The low bid was $209,500. Then the other bid was over $400,000, $413,796. Checking the references and information provided by the low bidder at 209.5, everything comes back responsive, positive, and basically we want to move forward with this project, and the clerks and the DPW will fund the shortfall from election reimbursement funds that come from the state and other funding sources. So we want to get moving on this because this does pertain to the vital storage of records in our system. So we're seeking the board's approval of the bid award in the amount of $209,500 to Rustic Fire Protection out of Norton, Mass, as presented.
So I just have a question.
Yep.
Generally, our estimates are just right on or pretty close. Why is this one so far off? Any thoughts?
The bidding climate is still uncertain out there, and in speaking to the clerk, and Christine can speak to this as well, some of the technology is enhanced from the original bid that was developed.
And also to add to that, I think this is industry specific, so it just seems like some of the pricing around fire protection seems to be, I guess, in the favor of the bidders, and maybe less competition. We also are seeing some companies are being bought up by like a monopoly company. So like you think you're three different contractors out there, but they're actually owned by one entity. So there is some consolidation happening across the industry, and I think that is allowing for some price inflation, particularly in that industry for fire protection. So that's what we perceive. But we did have an independent cost estimate. That wasn't something we did in house, and that estimate 155. I think we had a budget of 160. So it's just how the industry is still volatile, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
But sorry, Paul, you said that they were going to make up the difference, so we're voting the 155.
Yeah, you have to
we
vote the bid
whole
award
amount.
in the 209,500. Yeah.
And then
we'll
We'll
backfill
move
it
the
with
money. Okay,
reimbursement money
that's
from the
fine.
state
Yep.
from elections and so forth.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take a motion if nobody has anything else. Nope.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the town manager's bid award to Rustic Fire Protection, Inc. of 320 West Main Street, Norton, in the amount of $209,500 as presented.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes. Next up, town manager reports.
Okay, I'll be brief. I know we're into our third hour. First one, I just wanted to let the board formally know is now that we've passed Labor Day, we're commencing the FY27 budgetary process. The most notable one that you'll see first will be the finance director will be presenting a 5-year financial forecast at fall annual town meeting next month. What the final piece of information we're waiting for that is the new growth certification from the assessor's office. So once that comes in, we'll be able to finalize that. We've asked department heads to prepare level service budgets, so those will be worked on in the next several weeks. We've also asked them to, again, look at their fee schedules to see, You know, again, if our fees continue to be representative of the market. I also had a meeting last week with our employee health and retiree health insurance provider, and to get estimates on our claims and cost trends, and you'll see that in the next memo. We're also working with our actuarial consultant for the update on our OPEB on funded liability schedule. This is the adjustment year. Next year will be the full valuation, and Middlesex County Retirement will also have a full valuation at the end of this calendar year, which means next year. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at different possibilities in terms of regional public safety dispatch. As I said, whether we join one or we provide one or we stay the same. And then similarly, we're looking at a myriad on solid waste and recycling to the sticky issues of, we want to at least have the answers. You know, what is it costing us to collect at condominiums, since we're the only community that we know of that does that? What if the town were to, because we see what's going on with the Republic strike and the wages, and if they really are paying people six-figure salaries to collect solid waste and recycling, you know, kind of like the school busing thing, well, maybe it's time for a town to look at collection. And we know that in recent years, towns like Natick would back into the business of doing collection. So that kind of stuff, or doing the dramatic thing that Drake did, which wasn't popular, which was a solid waste and recycling fee like Lowell has and Drake has and so forth. What we're trying to do here, as you can see, is we're also looking to sell, whatever we can in terms of getting properties back on the tax rolls, like we heard earlier on the article on the warrant. We want to be able to prepare to whatever those analysis brings us, we're at least going to have answers to. We're not saying what we want to do, but I think the theme that hopefully you're seeing come across is let's have answers. And then with informed, we can make decisions. And so that brings me to my last bullet point of my memo, and it's something I am asking you for this evening is, I think it would be helpful if we had 2 tri-board meetings this year. Traditionally we have one in the beginning of December, the second Monday in December. And if you recall how that went last year, it was sort of not well received. Then it was sort of like, well, come back in January and then see where you are, and work it out with the superintendent and the town manager. What I'm suggesting is let's have a discussion in November, following the fall town meeting, following the tax rate approval, and then see where we are, and then then we can at least start having these initial discussions on approaches, and then come back in December a month later and see where we are. And then if need be, hopefully we get it resolved by January. Because my concern is that if we wait till December, we're not going to have enough time. I hate to ask the board to put another Monday night out in your schedule, but looking at the schedule, what I'm thinking would be the second Monday in November as well as the second Monday in December, which we're not scheduled to meet, but to have those special meetings, because I just think it's necessary because as you can see, everything that's out there in the horizon indicates it's going to be more difficult than ever in terms of to sustain the town's operations. And I just think having a second tri-board meeting, may be more helpful, particularly the second time we gather, as opposed to the initial data and information and discussion that the boards can then go back from there and then come back and then say, how are we going to tackle this issue? So that's my ask this evening. And you can either say, no, just stick with December, or you can say, yeah, we'll meet, ask the school committee and finance committee if they can come in November and December.
I think we're in challenging times, and I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. I'll send a word out to the other 2 boards. Okay. And then the other thing on my report this evening is the health insurance claims. And again, this sort of gives you what my concern is. Last week, we met with our insurance representative, and again, the end of the story is we're probably looking at a double-digit increase, which I at this point would be 13%. We have our claims data, and what we do know is we have 680 active employee subscriber plans across the community, the town, and the schools. We have 1,000 retirees taking a health insurance plan. So therefore, our total premiums are $20.6 million. Our total claims, unfortunately, for the last fiscal year were almost 21 million. So we basically were over 100%. As you can see, 101.73% loss ratio. Ideally, you don't want to be at 1 because a good insurance ratio is closer to 90% because you also have administrative costs and other things beyond claims that cost you for insurance. So you can see the good news is our loss ratio was better than the prior fiscal year where it was 105%, so we're down to 101.7. But what we're also seeing is the evolving phase of healthcare is what's leading the concerns going forward. The most notable one you see on there is these GLP-1 anti-obesity. This is not people taking the GLP drugs for diabetes. These are people who are taking it for obesity claims. We have 118 of our 680 subscribers are an active, claimants on that. So that's a pretty good percentage.
I mean, isn't that a little bit, because just because you have 680 subscribers.
It's not lives. That's right. That's right.
Right.
That's 600.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But the point is you're roughly at, you're in the 20 percentile for utilization. And what's troubling on that is two things. One is the claims to date in the calendar year are over $300,000. We're only halfway through the calendar year. The other thing that's happening with that is we're told that within the next several months, and certainly by late winter, instead of people having to inject it, you'll be able to take it in a pill form. One of the providers is going to be offering which will increase utilization. And then the other thing is it's just a changing thing. I don't know if you saw the commercial, if you've seen the commercial with Serena Williams, who basically injects herself and says this is her health care choice, and she injects herself with the GL1 drug. And basically, it just shows you that it's really being marketed now as a lifestyle.
Won't it become less expensive, though, if it's not injectable?
It is becoming less expensive.
Yeah.
And so what's happening
The
is
injectable is what makes
the industry is dropping the prices on it. So now, and as you may know, Blue Cross Blue Shield is no longer offering it as the end of the calendar year. And Harvard Pilgrim and Tufts already said they're no longer going to provide coverage. So that's why you're seeing the marketing going direct to consumers. Our plan goes to the fiscal year, and then we're waiting to see what the GIC does, which is a group insurance commissioned by the state, because our plan mirrors the state plan. There's talk that they may either discontinue at the end of the calendar year or wait till the end of the fiscal year. So we think they're going to get out of the pipeline. But the bigger issue is it's higher utilization and just the changing utilization of people for health care. They thought coming out of the pandemic it was a surge and it was going to come back, but instead what we're seeing is the attitude now is just, and the costs are just double digits. And unfortunately, what's not happening in this state particularly is there's no discussion of reform, either at the legislative level or by the private business level. Think about it. Everyone talks about the high cost of housing in Massachusetts, the high cost of utilities, but nobody's beating the door down talking about the high cost of health care. And part of the reason for that is it's so tied into our economy as the Commonwealth. Our largest employer in Massachusetts is Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're a large employer. Our biggest employer is Mass General Brigham and Women's, is the biggest employer in the state. And we know the struggles the state's pharmaceutical industry is having. And so that may explain why the business community and the legislature is not actively embracing reform like you're seeing in other states as close as Rhode Island and even out in Ohio and other places. So long story is this is not a market correction. This is a trend. So again, outside of public schools, healthcare is our second largest cost driver. And we will see the rates probably double digits on the federal plans because those go on the calendar year for retirees. And then we'll know in February what it is for active employees next summer. So that's a driving concern.
So can I ask a question and then I want to I'll make the statement first actually. I just think, especially because none of us are doctors as far as I know, I think it's just a little kind of slippery slope because I know the state's calling it out and we're going to follow the state and I think that's what we should do. But I think you get on a slippery slope when you start telling people where it's expensive, we're not going to pay for it. Because for those 118 people, you don't know what the healthcare cost is going to be if they don't have that. So I just want to make,
I'll just say this.
that's a personal opinion.
No, I want to enter
right?
into a debate, but what I'll say is when I sat in the room with the vice president of Blue Cross and their municipal claims person 3 weeks ago, they say there's no empirical evidence that they have that the idea would be, well, if you paid for this, you're not going to be paying for heart attacks or liver damage or whatever other things down the road. They don't
It's
don't
still a
see
new
that.
thing,
It's
so they
a
don't
new
have that
technology,
data.
Right, they just don't have the data yet.
They don't have the data yet. So that's again, it's not a debate, it's just
Right.
it's a comment for the record. The question I have, though, is 2 years now in a row, the loss ratio has been greater than premiums. Is that because the premium cost was underscoped, or we had no idea the claims were going to exceed that? Like, how do we get that imbalance?
We had no idea the claims, and that happened to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. They lost $115 million this year because they missed the target on the growth of healthcare costs, pharmaceuticals. And let me also set the record straight. The biggest cost in pharmaceuticals is really the specialty pharmaceuticals. These special care, experimental drugs, which no one's knocking, they drive about 75% of the pharmaceutical costs. Part of it is research, but part of it is also just the expensive nature of that. And again, nobody wants to deny that, but that's the real cost driver. Basically what's happening is those trends are exceeding their expectations. Now, again, we adjusted rates 18.8%. So that's why we're thinking that correction, because those rates only kicked in this past July. But again, we're talking rates that are going to go next July through June 30th of 27. And that's why you're always in this game of forecasting what rates are going to be. And then the other problem becomes an actuarial game, because if your costs grow, then your reserves have to grow to match your costs because you have to have adequate reserves. And so it becomes a pyramid game of why do your premiums increase as your costs increase.
Yeah, I think that the unfunded Middlesex, the other OPEB in healthcare in particular, I mean, those are the things that are going to move the needle. There's going to be a lot of other things we can try to do, from level service or adjustments, that are just not going to move the needle like these are.
Right, and my concern is now that our labor costs are almost complete and known for the next 2 years beyond this one.
Yeah.
We're going to have known numbers, and the problem's going to be, okay, what do we do? And that's why you can see why we're looking at all these contingencies and possibilities, is because it's going to be a challenge.
And these are effectively non-negotiable, correct?
Yeah,
Larry?
because we're basically rated on our claims. So if we walked out and said, oh, go to another provider, forget Blue Cross Blue Shield, another provider, they're going to rate you on your claims history. That's how we are. So it doesn't matter who's providing it, because whether you go to your doctor's office, you offer them a Blue Cross card or a Harvard Pilgrim card, doesn't matter.
Right. It's going to hurt.
Last thing on my report, next to the last thing on my report, coming to there, is the fire station project schematic design. I put the copy of the proposal in there. We had a meeting in the building last week. We had Pat Mahoney, who was the Select Board's liaison to the committee, was present, as was Tim Powerley from the Permanent Building Committee. Permanent Building Committee's meeting tomorrow night. The project is still moving forward. We believe that the architect and the owner's project manager are very mindful of the town's budgetary constraints and concerns at not exceeding the budget. And I think the proof is going to come out of that in the next several weeks when we get the design, development, drawing, cost estimates for this project. So that's where we are with that. In terms of the Parker Middle School Building Committee, tomorrow morning, the superintendent of schools, the chair of the school committee, and I are participating in the Massachusetts School Building Authority Designer Selection Panel, where we will be choosing between 2 finalists for the designer architectural services for the new Parker School project, and that's AI3 Architects and Tapé Associates. And so by about 10:30 tomorrow morning, I'll be able to tell you the results of that meeting and who's been selected. I will come before you at your next meeting for approval to enter into a contract with the chosen architectural firm per the MSPA format for contracts. And then at the next Parker School Building Committee meeting this month, we expect that we'd have our new architect present And then talking about a schedule and basically hitting the ground before the holidays in terms of getting the community sessions in to talk about grade configuration and so forth. So again, where we are since your last meeting is the 6 finalists were winnowed down by the MSBA process to 2. The interviews are tomorrow morning, starting at 8:30, and then, like I said, by 10:30, I'll get word out to you as who the firm is, and we'll get on that right away. And then the last thing is my monthly double poll report. Good news is the number of double polls is down to 40, which was down 13 from a month ago, and there were 21 double polls removed last month, but 8 new ones were added, and we'll continue to do this and really get this down to a small number, particularly the older ones. You know, we understand that double polls arrive, particularly when you have nasty weather, which we fortunately were spared from, but we really want, and by construction projects, but we really want to get particularly the longer standing ones cleared out, and we're trying to, with the message that we're putting out to folks is we want this done before the onset of the winter weather conditions,
Yeah,
because then they won't
that's
work.
good.
So that concludes my report for this evening.
So is everything still tracking from the school perspective, kind of according to the timeline? We're still in line with what we
Oh, yeah.
expected?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Next up, we have appointments.
Yeah, one that's a select board appointment, this is the vacancy on the Housing Authority. This is the state-appointed member, and in accordance with the state law, the state hasn't appointed a member, and David Hedison reached out to his contacts, and as you know, David's very connected with the governor and the administration. They don't have a candidate. So David reached out to a former Housing Authority elected member, Lynn Marcella, and Lynn has agreed to come back on to fill this vacancy. Now, the term runs through June 30th, 2029, because these are 5-year terms, and we'll see how it goes with Lynn, but, Lynn is willing to at least do it for a year, and she'll take it like everything else on a year-to-year basis, but, so you have an appointment from Lynn Marcella, who's obviously eminently qualified to serve in this capacity, so that's your appointment, but that's the background as to why this is before you, because we did advertise it and promote it as for the vacancy. And that's the only application and interest that we received.
Okay. Anybody have anything?
I'm shocked that she's considering it, to be honest with you, because I know she's trying to wind down.
Right, but David must have been very
Somebody
influential.
pulled her back in. It happens.
I'm glad she agreed.
That's the town. I mean, that's what happens. I mean, people, they stay in certain positions for a certain length of time and say, okay, it's time for somebody else.
Yep.
And then you run out of people.
Yep.
So then you gotta start going to the old school people who know what's going on and
Yep.
will probably do the best job.
All right, I'll take a motion. Pat,
Pat, you're muted.
you're muted.
Get it?
Sorry.
There you are.
I'll make a motion that the board appoint Lynn Marcella to the Housing Authority for a 5-year term. Is that what this is?
It's an unexpired 5-year term.
Unexpired, yep.
Unexpired 5-year term.
June
As
30th,
presented.
2029. Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
I just have to apologize to Lynn if she's watching. I didn't mean to call you old school, but, I love you, hon. You know that. Aye.
That's a yes.
Yes.
Aaron, yes. I'm a yes. Approved. Congratulations, Lynn. Welcome back.
And then I'm seeking your confirmation of the appointment of Daniel Tang of Elm Street to the Cultural Council for a term ending June 30th, 2026.
Okay. Nobody has anything? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the town manager's appointment of Daniel Tang to the Cultural Council.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Need to learn how to spell council.
Congratulations, Mr. Tang. Okay, next up, we have some meeting minutes from August 18th, 2025. Does anyone have any comments or corrections? Nope. Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the meeting minutes from August 18th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Motion passes. Minutes are approved. Okay, next up we have, now, if we're not gonna go to
Well, you
executive
do liaison
session,
report, you can do liaison reports.
we can do it and then discuss it, okay. So we'll do liaison reports. Pat, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Mr.
Just a couple of things. I went to the opening ceremonies for the 4-H fair, which was held last month. It was
I missed it this year.
yeah, it was really good. They had a good weekend to have the 4-H fair. There were lots of kids there. It actually seems to be increasing the amount of kids' activities. So I think it's a really good thing. So anyway.
It was great last year. My kids loved it last year.
Yeah,
It was
well,
good.
Have to go back next year then.
And
And
there
the
was
other,
a kid walking down to that every year, because I lived in South Chelmsford, so.
okay. The other thing is, Paul and I were at the library a week ago Saturday for the dedication of a sculpture in honor of Becky Herman, who was the longtime library director there. It's down in a little like patio type area that you get to at the bottom of the stairways. Take a look at it. It's really pretty impressive, and I know they're doing a couple other things too to memorialize Becky. She was a driving force in the library for sure.
Amen.
That's all I have.
Pat Maloney?
I'll just say that the town manager did a very excellent job giving my referrals for the permanent building committee, the fire stations, and the Parker School update. So nothing further.
Okay. Jeff?
I haven't really heard from the cemetery at all this summer, which is a good thing. I know parade committee's meeting next week. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town again. And I had a nice conversation with Carl Bishop about conservation. He told me they have a very pointed plan on their website referring to the coolest property, and it basically followed the task force recommendations. And anybody can go on and look at it, and if they have any questions, reach out to Carl. He'd be happy to answer them.
And volunteer their time and effort.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, nothing
That's it.
else? Aaron?
All right, I was able to get to the age-friendly implementation committee. So again, a good group of people, staying pretty busy over there. So they continue to work on their action plan updates and their 2026 plan, and working, making sure that they're aligning their goals with the strategic plan goals. And there's a new member, Janine Madden, I hope I'm saying her name correctly. So that was, they were happy with that. And again, you can attend that meeting online if anybody wants to go. The next one is September 24th. Final Square Action also met. As you guys know, though, they remain pretty busy. There was some public comment regarding the Freeman Lake treatment. So some residents came down in both sessions of public comment. And they kind of wound down with their roundtable things. So update on the clock for Vinyl Square and some things to beautify and dress those things up. And then they're starting to prepare for the tree lighting, which is on December 6th this year. And again, I know what was mentioned earlier, but if there's a business member that's willing to jump on that committee, and they're very active, and I think it benefits not only the North Chelmsford community, but it benefits the businesses around there. And their next meeting is on 9/29, if anybody wants to attend that as well. And then I'll have Board of Health tomorrow, I think, and Planning Committee on Wednesday, and now Finance Committee on Thursday, so I'll have updates next time for those.
Thanks. And I don't have anything. So next up we were supposed to have executive session.
If the board doesn't have any
Can I make
questions,
a-
we can just skip it and just do the vote on the contract. If you, yeah.
I've reviewed the material. I'm ready to vote.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because it's just a couple
Yeah, I
of
put it on there
updates
as a
since
placeholder
last
in case there were
time,
any questions that we could go out, but what I can tell you, if that's the case, is Public Safety Dispatchers Union has ratified the memorandum of agreement. It mirrors very similar to what we reached with the library employees at last town meeting back in June, and sort of follows with, this would be the penultimate agreement, so it follows where we are. So in summary, it's a wage increase of 3% the first year, 3 1/4 years 2 and 3, which mirrors that of the library employees. We increased their shift differential by 50 cents an hour from $1.50 to $2 per hour. And then there was language regarding shift coverage and vacation scheduling, which is an administrative stuff that Chief Spence has no issue with, and obviously the union is seeking and is comfortable with, and it's similar to what has happened with the basically semi-annual scheduling that we're seeing with the police in the same building. And then we increased the longevity by $250, the schedule, which again mirrors that of the other groups, and also converting it to a percentage amount, which is again what we did with the other groups. So that's really where we're at. It's a 3-year agreement. It would run through June 30th of 2028. And the total cost that we'll be requesting at town meeting for this group is $42,485, which has been confirmed by the town accountant in consultation with the police chief. So basically, all you need to do is make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement as presented, and then the next steps will be presentation to the finance committee on Thursday. This will be included in the presentation to you in 2 weeks, and then brought to town meeting. What we expect will be approval, much like the others have in the past. And that would just leave us with the firefighters as the only group at this point that doesn't have a contract at this point in moving forward.
Okay. Does anybody have anything? If not, no, I'll take a motion. Pat?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the memorandum of agreement for the successive collective bargaining agreement by and between the town of Chelmsford and the Chelmsford Public Safety Dispatchers. Ask me, Council 93, Local 1703, as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we didn't need to do anything to formally
Nope.
let go of executive
Nope.
session. Okay,
Nope.
so in that case, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes. And that is all we have. So I will take one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We're adjourned.